Chapter 2762. In the Twisted Space. Ji Tianxing, Yun Yao, Qin Yu, and Black Dragon were all there. Everyone was discussing countermeasures. Ji Tianxing expressed his thoughts to everyone. First, I don't want to abandon the Five Elements world. It's very, very important. I have a feeling that once I uncover some ancient mysteries in the future, it will be as important as the God Realm and the Dragon Realm. Second, after activating the laws of heaven and earth, the heavenly Tao's power will lead us to ascend. The five of us will go to the God Realm, but Qin Yu and Black Dragon will most likely enter the Dragon Realm. Moreover, the God Realm and the Dragon Realm have many ascension pools. Even if the five of us ascend to the God Realm, we will land in different ascension pools. The God Realm is very big, hundreds or even thousands of times bigger than the Five Elements world. Those ascension pools are scattered in every corner of the God Realm. Once we are separated, it will be difficult for us to meet for hundreds or even thousands of years. Therefore, we can't be separated. We must ascend to the God Realm or the Dragon Realm together. Hearing his words, everyone looked troubled and began to discuss among themselves. White Dragon smiled bitterly. Master, although you're the most powerful person in history and can always create miracles, Ascension Pool has never been used before. However, something like ascending with a ball had never happened before, and it was impossible to accomplish. If you do it, where will the heavenly Tao's face go? Jika nodded. Although the Five Elements world is definitely extraordinary and might be one of the main worlds in the past, but ascending with the Five Elements world is too absurd and bizarre. Ji Wushuang, who was 5 feet tall and looked like she was 10 years old, was as innocent and cute as ever. She looked up at Ji Tianxing, blinked her big eyes, and said, "Father, it's very simple if you don't want us to be separated. We will all stay in the Five Elements world. You can bring the Five Elements world alone and ascend to the God Realm." The little girl's thoughts were more innocent. Yin Yao stroked her head, smiled, and shook her head. Shuang, what you said is not a bad idea. But the problem is that your father can't bring the Five Elements world with him. Unless... Everyone agreed with Yin Yao's words and nodded. However, Yin Yao paused. She suddenly thought of something, and her eyes lit up. Right, we've been neglecting a problem. Ji Tianxing, Ji Ku, and the others all looked at her expectantly. What is it? Mistress, could it be that Master has hopes of ascending with the Five Elements world? Yin Yao smiled and nodded. That's right. Although the chances are slim, we can still give it a try. Jiku was full of doubts and could not help but ask, Eldest senior sister, what's going on? Yin Yao explained to everyone, many years ago, when Tianxing controlled the Five Elements world and flew in the void, I thought of a problem. He had already fused with the Five Elemental world. If he could shrink the Five Elemental world and store it in his body, wouldn't he be able to take it away as he wished? However, at that time, the Five Elements world was protected by the Divine Light Barrier, so he couldn't shrink it. I've tried thousands of times, but I couldn't break through the Divine Light Barrier. Now it's different. The Divine Light Barrier has become the sixth Divine Pearl, which I devoured and refined. If the Five Elements world loses its seal, perhaps Tianxing has hope. After hearing Yin Yao's words, everyone's eyes lit up, revealing looks of anticipation as they looked at Ji Tianxing one after another. Ji Tianxing's heart also stirred, and he hurriedly nodded and said, It makes sense. You all wait here. I'll go and give it a try. Finished talking, he left the Nine Heavens 10 Absolutes Pagoda and flew into the void outside the Five Elements world. He stood in the void, looking at the Five Elements world in front of him, and began to circulate his energy to control the world power. Swoosh! Before long, the Five Elements world burst forth with resplendent golden light, releasing a vast amount of world power. The entire Five Elements world was dim and lightless before, but now it became dazzling and dazzling. Ji Tianxing controlled the world power and kept compressing the Five Elements world, wanting to shrink it. This move was indeed effective. As he kept circulating his energy, the golden world power surged and erupted, shrinking the five elements world very quickly. It was still 990 million miles in diameter earlier. In less than 15 minutes, it became 980 million miles. Along with the passage of time, the five elements world slowly shrunk. However, for hours later, when the five elements world shrunk to 940 million miles, the five continents and the endless sky, sea, all produced tremendous turbulence. The various continents' plates were compressed, and earthquakes started occurring. Countless ravines and cracks appeared. The endless sky, sea surged and surged, stirring up monstrous waves. If Tianxing continued to shrink the five elements world, it was bound to cause an even stronger shock. At that time, the living beings of the five continents and the endless sky, sea would suffer large-scale casualties. With no other choice, Tianxing could only stop casting the spell. At this time, Yin Yao, Ku, and the rest came to the Void One after another. Everyone discovered the five elements world's turbulence and specially rushed over to inform him. When they got close, the moment they saw Tianxing's expression, everyone understood that he already knew. This method won't work. Forcefully shrinking the five elements world will destroy this world. Tianxing shook his head, his expression somewhat solemn. Yin Yao, Ku, and the rest also frowned and thought of other methods. Everyone was silent, their hearts somewhat heavy. If they could not bring the five elements world away, their ascension plan would be obstructed. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration flashed through Tianxing's mind as he thought of a certain possibility. Got it. Everyone stopped thinking and turned to look at him. Tianxing, have you thought of another way? Yin Yao asked. Tianxing nodded slightly and said with a solemn expression, if I directly shrink the five elements world like this, I will definitely destroy this world. If I have a divine artifact with a space of 1 billion miles, I can store the entire five-element world. Moreover, this divine artifact will change its size according to my wishes. In fact, it can always be hidden in my body. In this way, won't I be able to bring the five elements world with me and ascend? Hearing this, everyone's eyes brightened, and they revealed hopeful looks. But soon, the light in everyone's eyes dimmed again. Ku smiled bitterly and said, Brother Tianxing, your idea is very good and indeed feasible. But how can we have such a powerful divine artifact that can store the entire five elements world? Everyone nodded. Among the divine artifacts that they currently had, the highest grade was a heavenly divine artifact forged from source stones. It was impossible for a divine artifact of this grade to store the five elements world. Tianxing revealed a confident smile and said, Cuckoo, have you forgotten? Back then, I plucked 18 stars and refined them into the heavenly star chain. As long as you have the strength of a divine king or a king-grade divine artifact, you can store a star. Coincidentally, I happen to have a king-grade divine artifact here. As he spoke, he took out the heaven-mending pearl in his mind. Swoosh! The thumb-sized heaven-mending pearl floated in the void, emitting a dense white light. Everyone's spirits were lifted, revealing expressions of excitement and anticipation. Chapter 2763. Among the people present, only Yin Yao and Ku knew that Tianxing had the heaven-mending pearl. Of course, Yu and Black Dragon also counted. Everyone knew that the heaven-mending pearl was an ancient divine artifact with the heaven-defying effect of a divine artifact. But no one could guarantee that such a thumb-sized divine pearl could hold a five-element world with a diameter of more than 900 million miles. The gap between the two was more than billions of times. Therefore, when Tianxing activated his technique, everyone held their breaths and stared at it with their hearts in their throats. Swoosh! Under his control, the thumb-sized heaven-mending pearl flew towards the five-element world. During the flight, the heaven-mending pearl expanded at an extremely exaggerated speed. Swoosh! With a flash of white light, the thumb-sized heaven-mending pearl expanded to a radius of 10,000 feet. Swoosh! With another flash of white light, the heaven-mending pearl expanded to a radius of 20 miles. Swoosh! With another flash of white light, the heaven-mending pearl expanded to a radius of 2,000 miles. As the heaven-mending pearl flew through the void, it would flash once every moment and expand by dozens or hundreds of times. Everyone stood quietly in the void, their eyes never leaving the heaven-mending pearl. Even though the heaven-mending pearl was getting further and further away from everyone, its size was expanding rapidly, and it seemed to be getting closer and closer to everyone. 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. Soon, a day passed. The heaven-mending pearl had expanded to a radius of 100 million miles, floating above the five-element world, even though it was already so big that it covered the sky. But compared to the five-element world, it was still too small, only 1/10. Tianxing still did not stop circulating his technique. He continued to use his mind to control the heaven-mending pearl, expanding it infinitely. 2 days later, the heaven-mending pearl expanded to a radius of 200 million miles. Tianxing was already struggling to control the heaven-mending pearl, and his mind was also quite tired. But he had no intention of stopping to rest and continued to expand the heaven-mending pearl. 5 days later, the heaven-mending pearl finally expanded to a radius of 500 million miles. It was enough to hold half of the five-element world. However, the potential of the heaven-mending pearl had been exhausted, and Tianxing's mind was also extremely tired. There was nothing he could do. The heaven-mending pearl's power had not recovered to 10%. Even though it was a king-grade artifact, it had reached its limit. At this time, Yin Yao, Ku, Tianxing, Wu Shuang, Bai Long, and the others all saw through Tianxing's situation. Seeing his weak state of mind and pale complexion, everyone's hearts clenched, feeling extremely worried. Tianxing, we're here to help you. Yin Yao decisively channeled her energy. Her palms released dazzling divine light and infused it into Tianxing's body, helping him replenish his divine power and maintain his mind. Let's go too. Ku, Wu Shuang, and Bai Long also moved to help. Even Yu and Black Dragon used their divine power and divine soul power to help Tianxing. Instantly, Tianxing's divine power surged, and his mind regained its clarity. Under his control, the heaven-mending orb continued to expand. Another 3 days passed. The heaven-mending orb finally expanded to a radius of 800 million miles. It could already contain 80% of the five elements world. However, the heaven-mending orb stopped expanding again. Everyone's power had reached its peak. We're not strong enough. What should we do? Just a little bit more, and we would have succeeded. Take a divine pill or use a forbidden secret technique to forcefully increase our power. No, increasing our power by a few times in a short period of time will cause serious side effects. Then what should we do? Everyone was anxious, but there was nothing they could do. Tianxing frowned and thought for a moment. Then, he said, "Don't worry, everyone. I have an idea." As he spoke, he quickly absorbed the power of the five elements world. Swoosh! Within the five elements world, thousands of divine and golden rays flew out and entered his body. His divine power and mind surged again, and his mind became 100 times more energetic. Forcefully absorbing a large amount of world power caused his body to swell and become several times thicker. No matter how tough his meridians and divine body were, they could not withstand such violent world power and began to tear and strain. However, Tianxing gritted his teeth and continued to control the heaven-mending orb to expand. 820 million miles, 850 million miles, 890 million miles after half a day, the heaven-mending orb finally expanded to a radius of 1 billion miles. At this time, the heaven-mending orb was as big as the five elements world. No, it was a little bigger than the five elements world. It was like a sacred, white, and flawless star floating above the five elements world. We finally succeeded. It's not easy. We can finally leave with the five elements world. Yin Yao, Ku, and the others felt their blood boil when they saw this scene. They revealed expressions of joy and excitement. Ji Tianxing controlled the heaven-mending orb and split it into two halves from the middle. Like two super huge bowls, they slowly covered the five elements world. As the two super huge bowls slowly closed, the five elements world was gradually swallowed and absorbed into the heaven-mending orb. After a full 3 days, Ji Tianxing finally completed this unprecedented and earth-shattering feat after the two super huge bowls closed. It just happened to contain the five elements world. And inside the five elements world, there were no changes. However, this could not be considered a success. Ji Tianxing forced his tired body and continued to cast spells, controlling the heaven-mending orb to slowly shrink. Swoosh! As time passed, the heaven-mending orb shrank at an extremely fast speed. 1 billion miles, 900 million miles, 800 million miles. While the heaven-mending orb was shrinking, Ji Tianxing had been paying attention to the situation of the five elements world. Everything before was his idea, and it seemed feasible. However, the most important problem was that if the heaven-mending orb shrank, the five elements world would also be compressed and become smaller, and then all his efforts would be in vain. The heaven-mending orb shrank to the size of a thumb. If the five elements world was also shrunk to that size, the entire world would be completely destroyed. Not a single life would be left. In that case, what was the point of taking away the five elements world? Fortunately, the worst result that Ji Tianxing expected did not happen. The surface of the heaven-mending orb shrank, but the internal space was still as big as before, with a radius of 1 billion miles. This divine orb was indeed miraculous and heaven-defying. Just like a spatial ring, the surface was just a ring, but the inside could hold a mountain. And the heaven-mending orb was a king-grade divine artifact. Once it recovered to its peak, not to mention holding the five elements world, even if it held 10 more, it would not be a problem. Ji Tianxing was completely relieved. After a full 2 days, the heaven-mending orb returned to its original appearance, returning to the size of a thumb. The void regained its calm, and the five elements world disappeared. Swoosh! The heaven-mending orb flew back in front of Ji Tianxing and landed in his hand. He pinched the heaven-mending orb between his index and middle fingers and carefully sized it up. He saw a strange and magnificent scene. The heaven-mending orb, which was as clear as white jade, contained the five elements world that had shrunk hundreds of millions of times. It still looked clear and exquisite. Moreover, the five elements world did not suffer any adverse effects. The martial artists and the common people in the world did not even know what had happened. Yin Yao, Ji Ku, and the others were both shocked and curious. This is unbelievable. This is simply a method that only a divine king has. Our wish has finally been fulfilled. Ji Tianxing smiled and nodded and said, "Everyone enter the five elements world and recuperate in peace. Next, I will prepare to ascend." Chapter 2764. The five elements world was successfully stored in the heaven-mending pearl. Ji Tianxing's ascension plan was already halfway to success. Yin Yao, Ji Ku, and the others were no longer worried and entered the heaven-mending pearl one after another. What surprised them was that the heaven-mending pearl was only the size of a thumb from the outside. Once they entered the heaven-mending pearl, it was a vast world with a radius of 1 billion miles and the entire five elements world. They were filled with shock and amazement as they entered the five elements world and returned to the god pagoda to rest. Before they rested, everyone gathered together. Yin Yao said to everyone, "Everyone, the next time we leave the god pagoda, we should have already ascended to the god realm. At that time, everyone will be baptized by the heavenly Tao in the ascension pool. That is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, so you have to grasp it well." Everyone nodded in agreement. The innocent and naive Ji Wushuang raised his head to look at his mother Yin Yao and asked, "Mother, what is the ascension pool? Is it like taking a bath when we are baptized in the pool?" Yin Yao smiled and reached out to stroke Ji Wushuang's little head. Bai Long and Ji Ku had ascended once, so they naturally knew what the ascension pool was. However, Qian Yu and Black Dragon had never experienced it before, so they looked forward to it, but they were also worried and confused. Seeing this, Yin Yao looked at Ji Ku and said, "Kuku, you and Bai Long have stayed in the God Realm for a few hundred years, so you are very familiar with the God Realm. However, Shuang Qian Yu, and Black Dragon have never been there before, so they know nothing about the God Realm. Since we have nothing to do, why don't you tell them about the God Realm?" Ji Kun naturally nodded in agreement and smiled. "Shuang, don't worry. The Ascension Pool is a pool formed by the heavenly Tao, so there is no danger. It is said that there are thousands of Ascension Pools in the Dragon Realm and thousands in the God Realm. Those Ascension Pools appear randomly in different regions and change their positions every 100 years. Therefore, no one knows which Ascension Pool we will appear in. If we are lucky, the Ascension Pool will be on a few continents, not far from the cities and god nations. If we are unlucky and the Ascension Pool appears in a dangerous place, then we will be unlucky." Qian Yu and Black Dragon nodded as they listened, praying in their hearts. However, Ji Wushuang wasn't too concerned about this issue. She tugged on Ji Ku's sleeve and asked worriedly, "Second Mother, what exactly is in the Ascension Pool?" Ji Ku gently caressed her small face and explained, "The Ascension Pool is filled with divine lightning liquid and 8 other types of god power. It's like a vast and misty ocean. To ordinary, true gods, tempering their bodies in the Ascension Pool was like being reborn. It would be painful and torturous. But to us, it's not torture, it's enjoyment." Hearing this, Ji Wushuang's furrowed brows relaxed, revealing a sweet smile. "And, as long as it doesn't hurt." Shuang is most afraid of pain. Qian Yu hurriedly asked, "Sister Ku, if we go through the baptism of the Ascension Pool, will we be able to break through to the heavenly God Realm?" Ji Ku nodded and said, "After going through the tempering of the Ascension Pool, they will obtain great benefits. Ordinary people would basically increase their cultivation by 1 level. Geniuses would normally increase their cultivation realm by 2 levels or break through a major bottleneck. We're all half-step celestial deities. After going through the Ascension Pool's baptism, we'll definitely break through to the heavenly God Realm. Not just that, Shuang Qian Yu, and the Black Dragon should be able to reach 3rd level celestial deity realm. I should be able to reach 4th level celestial deity realm. Eldest senior sister and big brother Tianxing might reach 5th level celestial deity realm. Once you break through to the heavenly God Realm, don't be in a hurry to leave the Ascension Pool. Stay in the Ascension Pool first and take the opportunity to condense divine Tao laws and form a divine spark." "Divine spark?" Ji Wushuang blinked her big eyes and said, full of curiosity, "Is it divine Tao laws condensing together like a little baby stored in our stomach? If that's the case, wouldn't it be like Mother carrying me and Big Brother?" Without waiting for her to speak, everyone could not refrain from laughing. Kuku hurriedly shook her head and explained, "Shuang-er's first half is right. It's indeed condensing the divine Tao laws that we grasp together. But the divine spark isn't a little baby. It's like a piece of gem. It will exist in the depths of our sea of consciousness. That is our divine soul and the source of power, even more important than our lives." Ji Wushuang, Qian Yu, and the Black Dragon all nodded their heads to express that they understood. Qian Yu hesitated for a bit and could not resist asking, "Previously, old Ji said that the divine realm is vast like smoke, several hundred times larger than the 5 elements world. Then just what is the divine realm like? Are there continents, oceans, city-states, kingdoms, too? Are the life forms in the divine realm all deities above true God realm?" This time, not waiting for Ji Ku to explain, the white dragon beat him to it and answered, "Little fox, Master didn't say anything at all, nor is he exaggerating. The divine realm is indeed 1,000 times larger than the 5 elements world. That is a main world that exists eternally after all. The divine realm has a total of 4 continents, 9 great sea regions, 36 deity realms, and 108 grotto heavens. That place is truly a place where myriad races stand in great numbers, myriad countries contend for supremacy, heavens chosen as plentiful as clouds, heroes rising together. Disregarding other things, just those 4 continents are divided into 100 divine regions. Each divine region has 100 divine kingdoms. In the 9 Great Sea regions, there are also countless divine kingdoms and forces that have built all kinds of strange city-states and tribes. As for the 36 deity realms and 108 grotto heavens, they are all super forces of the divine realm. Ordinary divine monarchs cannot afford to offend them. Only our master, who had reached the peak of the divine monarch realm back then, dared to sweep through the 36 deity realms and 108 grotto heavens before breaking through to the divine king realm. All the young geniuses of that generation were all crushed by our master once. When the white dragon spoke of these past events, his face and eyes were full of memories and pride. The black dragon also felt his blood boil, very much looking forward to it. Only Qian Yu's body trembled, and he said somewhat worriedly, "In that case, didn't old G offend all the super forces? Then when we go to the divine realm, won't we be like foxes with our tails between our legs?" The white dragon immediately laughed disdainfully and said, "Ha, we are not worried. What are you afraid of? Anyway, our master has changed his identity now. At most, he will crush them again." Qin thought deeply and nodded repeatedly. "And that's a good idea." Ji Wushuang tugged at the white dragon's sleeves and asked, "Eldest senior brother, do all the people in the divine realm have strength above true God?" The white dragon hurriedly shook his head and explained, "That's not it. Even though the divine realm is vast, with boundless resources, myriad races standing in great numbers, extremely prosperous and prosperous, most of the people in the divine realm are ordinary. However, 80% of the living beings were ordinary people, which meant that their strength was below the true God realm. In the divine realm, regardless of whether it is martial sage or void god, they can only be considered ordinary people. The most common deities are true gods. 5th level celestial deity and above are experts. Reaching divine lord realm is a powerhouse. 5th level divine lord realm and above, that is the city lord or monarch that rules over myriad deities. As for divine king powerhouses, each region only has around 10 or so. Only then did Qian Yu and the black dragon reveal looks akin to being relieved of a heavy burden, both heaving a sigh in relief. "That's good. I thought that we would become the weaklings at the bottom after ascending to the divine realm. Looks like we can become experts not long after ascending to the divine realm." Chapter 2765. In the Void. Ji Tianxing had already put the heaven-mending pearl back into his body. At this moment, the heaven-mending pearl had shrunk to the size of a mung bean and was floating in his sea of consciousness. Even the sword of burial of heaven had been put back into his body. He stood proudly in the void and stared at the galaxy in front of him. He said to himself with emotion, "After 1100 years, I'm going back to the God realm again. There's no longer anyone or anything in this mortal world that I'm reluctant to part with." Indeed, the people that he was reluctant to part with were all in the 5 elements world, and he carried them with him. Going to the God realm, it's time to resolve the grudge from 1,000 years ago. When the time comes, I'm afraid that I won't have time to conserve my energy or plan slowly. It'll be a bloody battle, but I'm not afraid. Even if I have to kill everyone in the God realm, I'll turn those 5 bastards into ashes. Even though it had been more than 1,000 years, the hatred that was engraved in his heart had not dissipated. Instead, it had become even clearer. Ji Tianxing calmed his emotions and dispelled all distracting thoughts. He began to release the laws of heaven and earth. He slowly raised his palms and released his strongest divine power, releasing the laws of the 5 elements. Swoosh! He pushed his palms forward, and a colorful divine light surged out from his palms. Suddenly, the colorful divine light condensed into a halo of light that covered 100 miles and enveloped Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing channeled his energy again and released the laws of stars. Swoosh! Endless gold and silver divine light surged out from his palms and formed a halo around him. Suddenly, the halo around him became even more brilliant, like a dazzling star. Next, Ji Tianxing released the laws of space. The surging white divine light formed a halo of light that covered 100 miles around him. As he waved his palms for the fourth time, the last law of Earth also surged out. Swoosh! The dark yellow divine light condensed into a halo of light that covered 100 miles around him. Up until now, Ji Tianxing had only mastered these 4 laws. Among them, the laws of 5 elements and stars were laws that true gods could master. But the laws of earth and space were laws that only heavenly gods could master. In fact, when Ji Tianxing was asleep, he saw the passage of millions of years in his dream. He gained enlightenment and vaguely touched upon the laws of life, death, and reincarnation. Of course, he didn't even comprehend a trace of Upanishad. He only vaguely understood some principles. However, that was a power and domain that only godly king experts could reach. With his current strength, he was simply too weak. After Ji Tianxing struck out with 4 different kinds of divine Tao laws, he madly circulated his god force, pushing his god force and potential to the limit. He spared no effort to maintain the operation of the 4 divine Tao laws at all costs. Instantly, his star, which was hundreds of miles wide, became even more dazzling. That incomparably bright divine light soared into the sky. Time passed quietly. Every breath was torture for Ji Tianxing. However, he held on with all his might. As long as he could hold on for 100 breaths of time, he would succeed. When breaking through to the heavenly God stage, the more heavenly Tao laws one grasps, the more powerful the Godhead one condenses, and the smoother one's future cultivation of the divine way will be. Unfortunately, I only grasped 4 kinds of divine Tao laws, exactly the same as back then. However, I have the experience of ascension once and made preparations in advance. The other few kinds of powers in the ascension pool, I've also grasped them to the limit and are on the verge of forming laws. After I enter the ascension pool, I can still master a few more kinds of divine Tao laws. Ji Tianxing supported the operation of divine Tao laws and evoked the resonance of heavenly Tao power as he calculated in his heart. Unknowingly, 100 breaths of time passed. Normally, this bit of time was very short, but now it became very long and torturous, virtually exhausting Ji Tianxing's divine power and mental strength. Fortunately, he successfully held on. Rumble. In the boundlessly high void, heaven-shocking divine thunder suddenly sounded out. In the darkness, 5-color divine light appeared out of thin air, carrying endless lightning, pouring down like a monstrous flood. Swoosh! In a blink of an eye, that boundless divine light and lightning drowned a radius of 1,000 miles. Ji Tianxing and his 4 kinds of divine Tao laws were all enveloped by endless divine light and lightning. This was the power of heavenly Tao, the will of heavenly Tao that brought him out of the mortal world and ascended to the divine world. It was not easy for ordinary gods to want to ascend. Even a genius with exceptional aptitude had to make decades of preparation and try dozens or hundreds of times before they could trigger the power of heavenly Tao. Just like Yin Shuiyin back then, deciding to take Dubhe and escape from planet Heaven Crusher. She also needed decades of preparation before she could take Dubhe and ascend to the upper realm. And now, Ji Tianxing succeeded in one try. Endless 5-color divine light and lightning transformed into a vortex with a radius of 1,000 miles, spinning rapidly. In a short 10 breaths of time, Ji Tianxing and the 4 circles of light around him were swallowed without a trace. After a long time, the dazzling divine light and lightning dissipated. When the void calmed down, there was nothing left. Ji Tianxing had long disappeared. He had already left the mortal world and ascended to the divine world. Even though Ji Tianxing had ascended once back then, But that time, he had borrowed the power of the space-time roulette and arrived at the dragon realm in a daze. This time was different. Ji Tianxing experienced the entire ascension process very clearly and calmly. First, there was a dazzling scene in front of him. The divine light and lightning were dazzling. Then, his vision turned black, and his heart suddenly jumped, because the sacred and vast power of heavenly Tao wrapped around him and tore through the void, flying toward the endless sky. That feeling was like a mortal standing on flat ground, suddenly being grabbed by a large hand and instantly lifted high into the sky, entering the void. That's right. The distance between the trichiliocosm and the divine world was like the distance between a mortal and the void. It seemed that they were not far apart, one in the sky and one on the ground. But in reality, there was a transparent barrier between the two. Those who were not strong enough would never be able to break through it. It was also like a fish in the sea, looking up at the sky across the frozen sea. Unless the fish turned into a dragon, it would not be able to break through the ice and fly in the sky. Swoosh! Just as Ji Tianxing was comprehending with all his heart, the power of heavenly Tao wrapped around him, broke through the barrier between the two worlds, and entered the divine world. In an instant, the majesty of the heavenly Tao was even more powerful and vast, and an even more vast aura filled his body. Even the pressure and divine power around him suddenly became hundreds of times denser. In other words, the pressure he was under also became enormous. Such a strange, yet familiar feeling caused a thought to flash through Ji Tianxing's mind. Divine world, I'm back. In the next moment, he entered a sea of dazzling divine light, and only the sound of thunder and splashing water could be heard. The invisible power of heavenly Tao that wrapped around him also quietly disappeared. Ji Tianxing stopped in the middle of the colorful ocean, quietly floating in the air. The familiar feeling calmed him down, and he opened his eyes to look around. He saw that he was surrounded by boundless light purple seawater, which was crackling with electric arcs and thunderclaps. In the sea, there were colorful divine lights mixed in, and they were incomparably gorgeous. Chapter 2766. The scene in front of him, Ji Tianxing was very familiar with. This was the Ascension Pool. There were thousands in the divine world, and there were also thousands in the dragon realm, and they were exactly the same. The seemingly faint purple ocean was actually lightning liquid condensed from divine lightning. Therefore, the Ascension Pool was also called the Lightning Pool. The ascenders from the 3,000 worlds, after entering the lightning pool, will be tempered by the lightning liquid. This way, the divine body would be tempered and strengthened further, becoming even stronger, and also able to adapt to the enormous pressure of the divine world faster. After all, the divine world was an eternal main world. The spatial barrier was 1,000 times stronger. Heaven and earth divine power was also 1,000 times stronger. Living, walking, flying, and fighting in the divine world was 1,000 times harder than in the mortal world. Regarding this point, Ji Tianxing understood it very thoroughly. He had long been prepared to borrow the lightning pool to further increase his strength. The rainbow divine light mixed in the endless lightning liquid was divine power of 8 different attributes. There was blood soul divine power, frost ice divine power, heavenly wind divine power, star divine power, longevity divine power, transformation divine power, spatial divine power, and soul-shaping divine power. These 8 divine powers all had different effects. The first 4 divine powers were more common. Most ascenders mastered the corresponding laws. And the last 4 divine powers were all heavenly deity-level powers. Normally speaking, 99% of ascenders could not master these 4 types of powers. Apart from divine lightning and the 8 divine powers, a 9th type of power would occasionally appear in the Ascension Pool. That was the opportunity bestowed by the heavenly Tao at random. What kind of opportunity was it? What power? When did it descend? Nobody knew these. There had once been many strong people who spent tens of thousands of years to study the law of opportunity's appearance. The conclusion was that there was no law at all. However, The ascenders who obtained the opportunity would all possess extremely powerful combat strength or extraordinary natural endowments. As long as these people did not die prematurely, they would all have great achievements. The worst could reach the Divine Lord realm, and most of the lucky ones became divine kings. It was precisely because of this that the heavenly Tao opportunity appeared incomparably mysterious and incomparably precious. But very unfortunately, almost all ascenders came to the divine world for the first time. They were filled with the unknown and reverence towards the divine world, and did not know the existence of opportunity at all. Therefore, ascenders who could obtain lucky chances were all one in a million lucky people. Ji Tianxing stayed in the lightning pool for a while before he sorted out his thoughts and plans. First, he let everyone enter the lightning pool to receive the baptism and transformation. After that, he refined the divine power within the lightning pool and condensed the divine Tao laws. Then, he would break through to the heavenly God realm and condense a Godhead. After making up his mind, he began to check on the situation of the heaven-mending pearl. The heaven-mending bead was still floating in his sea of consciousness, completely undamaged. Ji Tianxing heaved a sigh of relief and continued to check. Inside the heaven-mending pearl, the 1 billion kilometers of space was still intact. The five elements world was also peaceful, and nothing unexpected happened. Only then did Ji Tianxing feel as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Then, he released Yun Yao, Ji Ku, and the others. Swoosh! Swoosh! Everyone flew out of the heaven-mending pearl one after another and entered the lightning pool. Before everyone ascended, Ji Ku and the white dragon had introduced them to the lightning pool. But when everyone stood in the lightning pool and saw the beautiful scenery around them, they couldn't help but cry out in surprise. We've finally ascended to the divine realm. Divine realm, my little white dragon in the waves is back. Wow, it's indeed a vast sea formed by lightning liquid. Second mother didn't lie to me. Soaking in the lightning pool doesn't hurt at all. It's very comfortable. What a gorgeous divine light, shining in the lightning liquid. I've changed my mind. Not only do I want to cultivate the divine thunder law, but I also want to refine a few more types of energy and condense them into laws. Everyone was excited, full of joy and anticipation. Ji Tianxing understood everyone's feelings. After waiting for a while and waiting for everyone to calm down, he reminded them, the ascension pool is formed by the will of the heavenly Tao. It's absolutely safe here. Everyone can cultivate without worry. No one will disturb you. Use the lightning liquid to temper your body while refining various types of divine power. Everyone do your best. Try to refine as many types of divine power as possible. After breaking through to the heavenly God realm, you can condense a divine spark. No matter who finishes cultivating first, don't be in a hurry to leave the lightning pool. Wait for everyone, because we still don't know what's going on outside the lightning pool. After pausing for a while, he added, if everyone discovers the 9th type of mysterious energy, you must inform everyone. That's a heavenly Tao opportunity. Of course, the probability of a heavenly Tao opportunity appearing is very low. There's no need for everyone to search for it. Everyone heard it clearly and nodded to show that they understood. Ji Tianxing waved his hand, indicating for everyone to disperse and do their own things. After everyone left, he stopped where he was and began to cultivate. First, I'll refine the power of the divine thunder, then the other types of divine power. As this thought flashed through his mind, Ji Tianxing started to cultivate and absorb the power of the lightning liquid. The lightning liquid in the lightning pool was the purest form of divine thunder without any impurities. Ji Tianxing had already grasped a few types of lightning, so refining them was twice the result with half the effort. In a short 3 days, he had refined the power of the divine thunder to the limit. Then, he absorbed the dark red divine light from the purple lightning liquid and refined the blood divine power. This was the power of a true god. It could greatly strengthen one's body, bloodline, and physique. Logically speaking, Ji Tianxing's body should have been strengthened to the limit long ago. Even if he refined the blood divine power, it could not be strengthened anymore. However, that was an immortal world where there was the suppression of the heavenly Tao. Now that he was in the divine world, he was no longer suppressed by the heavenly Tao and could rapidly increase his strength. In a mere 4 days, Ji Tianxing grasped the blood divine power, and his body was strengthened 9 times. Next was the ice divine power. This was also the power of a true god. It was the evolution of the water divine power of the 5 elements. Ji Tianxing did not mind. He absorbed the ice blue divine light from the lightning liquid and quickly refined it. Third was the heavenly wind divine power. It was also the power of a true god. After refining it, flying the divine world would be several times faster. Ji Tianxing accepted it all. Ji Tianxing ignored the 4th star divine power. He had already grasped the laws of the stars. Next, there were the longevity, transformation, space, and soul sculpting divine powers, all of which were at the heavenly god level. Space divine power was directly excluded. The longevity divine power could greatly increase one's lifespan and strengthen one's body and soul. Almost all heavenly gods could refine this power. The transformation divine power was amazing. After mastering it, one could change their size and even take on various shapes. Its effect was similar to the 72 transformations. As for the soul sculpting divine power, it specialized in strengthening one's soul. It could strengthen one's soul and slightly increase one's talent and comprehension. Ji Tianxing accepted all 3 of these heavenly god-level powers. After 28 days, Ji Tianxing successfully refined 7 types of divine power. At the same time, the lightning liquid's refinement had also reached its peak. His bloodline, flesh, blood, divine power, and soul were all strengthened in all aspects. His overall combat strength had increased by at least 6 times. Next, Ji Tianxing naturally broke through the true god level and stepped into the heavenly god level. Chapter 2767. Ji Tianxing sat cross-legged in the lightning liquid, both eyes tightly shut. He was currently breaking through to the celestial deity realm and had already maintained this posture for half a month without moving. Dazzling 5-color divine light enveloped his entire body, flickering indeterminately. Right at this moment, the vast and surging divine power in his body boiled to the peak, successfully breaking through the shackles. Boom! It was only to hear thunder erupting from within his body, giving off a series of muffled sounds like a flash flood. Just like that, he reached the celestial deity realm without any difficulty. Of course, he was only at the 1st level celestial deity realm right now. He still had not finished cultivating, continuing to sit cross-legged, circulating and assaulting the next realm. The terrifying power accumulated in his body was still continuing to boil, surging in his bloodline and divine body. After all, his strength foundation before ascending already reached 99 times, the mortal realm limit. 7 days later, another muffled rumbling of thunder sounded out from Ji Tianxing's body again. He released divine light once more, his entire body shining with 5-colored brilliance. 2nd level celestial deity realm already. But he did not stop yet, still assaulting the next realm. 8 days later, 3rd level celestial deity realm. 18 days later, 4th level celestial deity realm. A month later, 5th level celestial deity realm. Ji Tianxing originally thought that his potential and foundation would help him charge to the 5th level, and it would calm down. But he did not expect that the vast and surging divine power in his body was still violent and fierce. Continue cultivating. Another half a month later. Rumble. The familiar muffled thunder sounded out from his body once more. He actually broke through to the 6th level celestial deity realm. Only all the way until now did the boiling divine blood and divine power gradually calm down. Ji Tianxing was deeply gratified, circulating and regulating his breathing for 3 days, stabilizing his divine Tao foundation. All the accumulation done in the mortal realm previously was for today's eruption. Originally, I could only erupt to the 5th level. Previously, I refined 7 types of divine power before I could erupt to the 6th level celestial deity realm. It's worth it. Ji Tianxing was very satisfied. Then, he started condensing divine Tao laws. The first one was naturally divine lightning laws. In the mortal realm, he grasped the power of lightning before transcending the tribulation. Now, condensing divine lightning laws was simply as easy as flipping his hand. In just 5 days, he had successfully merged the 4 types of lightning with the Heaven's Path divine lightning in a lightning pool. He had used 5 different types of divine lightning to condense the most unique divine lightning law. He was definitely at the heavenly god tier, perhaps even far beyond the heavenly god tier. The second was the law of blood. It only took him 8 days to successfully condense it. The third was the law of ice. Similarly, it took him 8 days to successfully condense it. The fourth law was the heavenly wind law. It was still completed in 8 days. Next, he needed to condense heavenly god-level nomological laws, which was slightly more difficult. He had successfully condensed the longevity law in 15 days. The law of transformation was completed in 16 days. The law of soul molding was completed in 18 days. At this point, Ji Tianxing had finished cultivating for more than 150 days. Close to half a year, he had broken through to the 6th level of the heavenly god realm and grasped 11 types of divine Tao laws. But this was not the end. The most important thing had come. Condense a godhead. Even though Ji Tianxing reached the 6th level celestial deity realm and grasped 11 laws. However, he was still not a true heavenly god. Only those who had condensed a godhead could be considered a true heavenly god. The method of condensing a godhead, Ji Tianxing could not be any more familiar with it. 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical forms, plus a lifetime of divine power. Then fusing all of the divine Tao laws. It would be a success. But this process was dangerous and tedious, consuming a lot of time. Ji Tianxing had plenty of patience. He continued to cultivate. First, use the divine soul as the foundation. Then muster up his lifetime of divine power, the 2 fusing. 3 months later, the divine soul and divine power successfully fused without any errors. After the 2 fused, they formed a thumb-sized 5-colored light ball. This ball of light was the embryonic form of the godhead. Then, Ji Tianxing fused divine Tao laws inside. From simple to difficult, from low to high. Starting from the 5 elements laws, then star law, ice law, heavenly wind law, blood law. Each law that was successfully condensed would add a hint of dazzling color to that ball of light. Following that, Ji Tianxing started condensing the 6 great celestial deity level laws. Time passed silently. He was immersed in condensing laws, his mind undistracted. It had already been 10 months since everyone entered the ascension pool. Everyone ended cultivation one after another. Just as Ji Ku said previously, everyone broke through to the celestial deity realm. Even everyone's strength realm, she basically guessed it right too. Ji Wushuang was the first to end cultivation. 3rd level celestial deity realm, grasped 5 kinds of divine Tao laws, successfully condensing a godhead. Qian Yu and Black Dragon ended cultivation soon after, a month later than Ji Wushuang. Same as Ji Wushuang, they were also 3rd level celestial deity realm. However, the 2 of them grasped 7 kinds of divine Tao laws, successfully condensing a godhead. Following that, White Dragon completed cultivation. 4th level celestial deity realm, successfully condensing a godhead, grasping 10 kinds of divine Tao laws. Before long, Ji Ku also completed cultivation. 5th level celestial deity realm, also condensed 10 kinds of divine Tao laws in the godhead. The last to complete cultivation was Yun Yao. 5th level celestial deity realm, condensed 12 kinds of laws in the godhead. She condensed 1 more law than Ji Tianxing. After all, she already fused 6 divine beads. The divine Tao laws that Ji Tianxing grasped, she also grasped all of them. But her sixth divine bead was light divine power. Therefore, she condensed one more light law than Ji Tianxing. After everyone finished cultivating one after another, seeing that Ji Tianxing was still cultivating, they did not make a sound to disturb him. Staying on the spot to adjust his breathing made everyone feel bored. Hence, Ji Wushuang, Qian Yu, Black Dragon, and White Dragon all left, exploring the vast lightning pool. Everyone was very curious, just how big was the mysterious lightning pool formed by Heavenly Tao? What kind of profound mysteries were hidden inside? Also, the Heavenly Tao lucky chance that Ji Tianxing mentioned before, what the hell was that? Just like this, the two people and the two divine beasts split up and moved about, cruising and exploring in the lightning pool. Roughly more than a month later, Ji Wushuang flew out several million miles. There was no one in the surroundings for several 100,000 miles. This curious baby, from the initial curiosity and longing, gradually felt bored. She only wanted to know how big the lightning pool was and if there were other gorgeous sights. In the end, the lightning pool seemed to be limitless, forever without end. The sights that she saw were also unchanged. Purple lightning liquid flickering with lightning, layers of seven-colored divine light. There was nothing else. Not fun at all. Ji Wushuang gradually lost patience, pursing her small mouth, planning to return. But just as she turned around, she suddenly discovered that in the lightning liquid tens of thousands of miles away, there seemed to be a black light flashing. And what is that? She clearly remembered that in the light purple lightning pool, there was a gorgeous seven-color divine light, but there was no black light. Hence, curiosity drove her to fly towards that black light. 2 hours later, she flew tens of thousands of miles away before arriving in front of the mysterious black light. It turned out that it was a ball of black divine light with a radius of 100 feet. Like a whirlpool, it slowly moved in the lightning pool, bobbing up and down. Although this black whirlpool looked a little strange, even a little eerie, Ji Wushuang did not feel scared. However, Ji Wushuang did not feel afraid. After observing for a long time, he plucked up his courage and reached out to touch it. Chapter 2768. Swoosh! Ji Wushuang's small white hand had just touched the black vortex when she felt a powerful devouring force. The surging divine power in her body immediately surged towards the black vortex like a flood that opened the floodgates. This made her alarmed, instinctively wanting to withdraw her hand. But how shocking was the black vortex's devouring power. Her hand was sucked in firmly, unable to withdraw at all. Ji Wushuang's mouth twitched, and she could not help muttering, "What is this thing? Actually wanting to devour my divine power." No choice. She had just broken through to the third level of the celestial deity realm and had just condensed her divine spark. Her divine Tao foundation was not stable enough, and her control of divine power was also not perfect enough. In her anxiety, she only wanted to withdraw her hand as soon as possible, desperately erupting with divine power for this. But this way, her divine power surged even more violently, increasingly pouring into the black vortex uncontrollably. In a short 10 breaths of time, 20% of her divine power was devoured. In less than a dozen breaths of time, her divine power would be completely devoured. At that time, her divine spark would be damaged, and her divine Tao foundation would also be damaged. Very soon, Ji Wushuang forced herself to calm down, muttering in her heart, "No, I absolutely cannot panic. Father and mother both taught me. The more important the matter, the calmer I must be." Hence, she no longer struggled in a panic, allowing the black vortex to imprison her hand. She also did not urge her divine power, instead using her mind to suppress the divine power in her body. This move was very effective. The surging divine power in her body was quickly suppressed. The remaining 80% of divine power became docile and tamed, firmly staying in her body. At this time, the black vortex could not devour any more divine power. Its spinning speed also slowed down greatly. The black vortex's devouring power gradually weakened. Ji Wushuang carefully withdrew her hand, letting out a sigh of relief as if relieved of a heavy burden. Too scary. I don't want to touch this strange thing anymore. Ji Wushuang rubbed his reddened little hands as he retreated. She could tell that the black vortex was not to be trifled with, but it was not some living thing. Instead, it was a special kind of power. She suddenly recalled the words her father said before entering closed-door cultivation. Her clear eyes suddenly brightened, revealing a look of surprise and anticipation. Father said before, the lightning pool only has 8 attributes of divine power other than lightning liquid. Then this black vortex was the 9th type of godly power. Could this be the heavenly Tao fated chance that Father was talking about? How could I be so lucky to have encountered it? Ji Wushuang already had 60 to 70% confidence in his heart. Instantly, he was filled with joy and revealed a smile on his face. But she wasn't sure, as she couldn't do anything to the black vortex. Thus, she left a mark near the black vortex and quickly turned around to look for her mother. In any case, the black vortex was moving very slowly. Within half a month, it wouldn't be able to move beyond a radius of 10,000 miles. In the middle of the lightning pool, Yun Yao, Ji Ku, White Dragon, and the 2 mythical beasts all ended their cultivation one after another. Everyone was reborn, their strength increased by more than 20 times. At this moment, everyone was gathered together, waiting for Ji Tianxing to finish his cultivation. Originally, the White Dragon and the 2 divine beasts were bored and went to explore the lightning pool. However, after searching for a month, they didn't find anything. The scenes that entered his eyes didn't change at all. After a long time, they felt bored and returned one after another. Everyone stared at Ji Tianxing with burning gazes. Seeing that his entire body was shrouded in 7-color divine light, they could not resist guessing. Tianxing has long completed his breakthrough and reached celestial deity realm. His foundation is incomparably deep, stronger than all of us. He actually broke through to 6th level celestial deity realm. Big brother Tianxing completed his breakthrough a few months ago and is currently condensing his divine spark. I wonder how many kinds of divine Tao laws he grasped. Before ascending, Master already grasped 4 kinds of laws. There are 8 kinds of divine powers in this lightning pool. Apart from star and spatial power, he can grasp 6 kinds of powers and condense 6 kinds of laws. Which is also to say that old Ji can condense a total of 10 kinds of divine Tao laws. No, it should be 11 kinds. Most likely, don't forget, the lightning liquid is formed from pure divine lightning and can help him condense divine lightning laws. Just as everyone was discussing, a streak of 5-color divine light sped over from afar. Still very far away, Yun Yao and Ji Ku sensed a familiar aura and both revealed smiles. Shuang is finally back. This girl left for more than a month. She must be tired of playing now before coming back. That streak of 5-color divine light was indeed Ji Wushuang. Before long, she flew back in front of everyone. She looked at Yun Yao and Ji Ku excitedly and hurriedly shouted, "Mother, second mother, I discovered a black vortex that doesn't belong to those 8 kinds of divine powers. If I didn't guess wrongly, that must be a heavenly Tao opportunity. Quickly follow me." Ji Wushuang waved her little hands excitedly, urging everyone to follow her to find the black vortex. She looked like she was afraid that the black vortex would disappear if they returned late. Everyone was shocked. Then, they revealed a look of joy and surprise. Black vortex? The 9th kind of divine power? If it's really the 9th kind of divine power, then it's extremely likely to be a heavenly Tao opportunity. I didn't expect that we didn't discover anything after searching for more than a month. Little junior sister is blessed with fortune to actually encounter a heavenly Tao opportunity. Everyone quickly calmed down and planned to follow Ji Wushuang to check the situation. However, Yun Yao said, "Shuang, your father hasn't finished cultivating yet. Mother will wait for him here. Ku, bring everyone to find the black vortex." Ji Ku hurriedly shook her head and said, "Eldest senior sister, bring everyone to check the situation. I'll stay here and wait for big brother Tianxing." The two discussed for a moment and decided just like that. Yin Yao brought Ji Wushuang, the white dragon, and the two divine beasts to search for the black vortex. Ji Ke stayed behind to wait for Ji Tianxing. Of course, before Ji Wushuang left, she gave Ji Ke the direction and approximate distance. Not long after, Yin Yao, Ji Wushuang, and the others left. Only Ji Ke and Ji Tianxing, who was cultivating in seclusion, were left behind. Day after day, another half a month passed. Ji Tianxing finally ended his cultivation. He finally condensed 11 Tao laws together and completed the condensation of a divine core. His divine soul, lifetime of divine power, and 11 Tao laws all condensed together, forming a thumb-sized divine core suffused with a 7-colored brilliance. The divine core's appearance was like a gem, but it was not round like a ball. Its surface was like a rhombus-shaped crystal. Upon closer inspection, one would discover that the surface of the divine core was divided into 11 pieces, each of different colors. This meant that his divine core had condensed 11 types of divine Tao laws. In the future, the more divine Tao laws he condensed, the more rhombus-shaped surfaces of the divine core. Back then, he was a peak divine king. His divine core was exquisite to the extreme and actually had more than 1,500 rhombus-shaped surfaces. In other words, there were 3,000 divine ability great Tao under the heavenly Tao, and he had grasped a full half of them. Chapter 2769. Ji Tianxing ended his cultivation. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw that his surroundings were empty. There was only Ji Ke. Without waiting for him to ask, Ji Ke took the initiative to explain. Big brother Tianxing Shuang had discovered the 9th type of divine power. It's a black vortex. I'll let eldest senior sister lead them there first. I'll wait for you here. Ji Tianxing was overjoyed. He asked in disbelief, "You really discovered the 9th type of divine power? Is it really a heavenly Tao opportunity? I didn't expect that the legends of the dragon and god realms were actually true." Ji Ke hurriedly nodded and said with relief, "Shuang is really lucky. She actually discovered a small black vortex in the boundless lightning pool. Bai Long, Qin Yu, and Black Dragon also went to explore the lightning pool. They searched for more than a month, but found nothing." Ji Tianxing did not waste any more time. He hurriedly got up and said, "Then what are we waiting for? Let's go and take a look." Ji Ke hurriedly led the way for him and flew towards the southeast. The two of them shuttled through the lightning pool. Ji Ke could not help but ask, "Big brother Tianxing, how many nomological laws did you condense during your breakthrough this time?" 11. Ji Tianxing answered without hesitation. Ji Ke nodded. "It's just as everyone expected." Ji Tianxing asked, "Everyone finished cultivating? How are the results?" Ji Ke answered truthfully, "They're all done. Shuang has reached the 3rd level of the celestial god realm and has condensed 5 nomological laws. Qin Yu and Black Dragon are also at the 3rd level of the celestial god realm and have condensed 7 nomological laws." Ji Ke gave a brief introduction of everyone's situation. Hearing this, Ji Tianxing nodded in satisfaction. "It's better than I expected. Looks like everyone has gained a lot in the lightning pool. Especially Yao Yao. She actually condensed 12 nomological laws." The two of them hurried on. 10 days later, they flew more than 4 million kilometers. Ji Tianxing's divine sense detected the auras of Yin Yao and the others from tens of thousands of miles away. "They are there. Let's go." Not long after, Ji Tianxing and Ji Ke landed beside everyone. Yin Yao, Ji Wushuang, and the others were surrounding a black light vortex, carefully observing it. Seeing Ji Tianxing's arrival, Yin Yao and the others greeted him one after another. Ji Wushuang stepped out from the crowd and pulled Ji Tianxing's hand. He pointed at the black vortex and said, "Father, that's the mysterious vortex I discovered. This is the 9th type of divine power, and it should be the heavenly Tao opportunity that you mentioned. Unfortunately, we've all tried, but no one can refine it." Ji Tianxing smiled and nodded. He pinched Ji Wushuang's cute little face and said, "Darling, Wushuang's luck is truly heaven-defying. I'm so envious that you actually encountered a heavenly Tao opportunity that's 1 in 10,000. After saying that, Ji Tianxing looked at Yun Yao and asked, Yao Yao, have you figured out the situation? What is this black light vortex? Yun Yao nodded and said helplessly, this is a very special type of divine power. It's a little similar to a black hole, but it's not. All of us have tried, but we can't refine it at all. Moreover, no matter what type of divine power it will be devoured as soon as it gets close. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and walked in front of the black light vortex. He used his divine mystic technique to observe it. After 2 months, the black light vortex had devoured everyone's divine power, but there were no obvious changes. It was still 100 feet wide, and it was slowly flowing in the lightning pool. Ji Tianxing observed for a moment and saw some clues. This black divine power was indeed very similar to a black hole. It could devour all kinds of power. However, it was a heavenly Tao power after all. It would not devour the lightning liquid and the 8 types of divine power in the lightning pool. Ji Tianxing used 11 laws and released divine power of different attributes. He continuously shot out 11 sword lights. In the end, all the sword lights were devoured by the vortex. Interesting. This is probably the legendary devouring divine power, Ji Tianxing said with a smile. Everyone frowned, revealing puzzled and curious expressions. Devouring divine power. It can devour divine power of different attributes? What grade is this divine power? It's very powerful, right? Why is it legendary? Have you not seen it before? Ji Tianxing nodded and explained to everyone. Back in the divine realm, I heard of an ancient legend. About 20,000 years ago, a peerless genius appeared in the boundless heaven continent. This person was originally a lowly warrior of the Zhuoyuo clan, but because of a fortuitous encounter, his life completely changed. He became a god at 30 years old, a heaven god at 100 years old, a god lord at 300 years old, and a god king at 800 years old. Such a heaven-defying advancement speed broke the tens of thousands of years of the divine realm's history. He could be called the #1 genius in the divine realm. Originally, the Zhuoyuo clan was a vassal of the great Yin divine race. They existed like slaves and lived a miserable life of being enslaved. It was precisely because of the appearance of this heaven-defying genius that the Zhuoyuo clan became unprecedentedly powerful. He commanded tens of millions of Zhuoyuo clan warriors and overthrew the great Yin divine race's rule. He seized more than a dozen divine nations of the great Yin divine race and established himself as the Zhuoyuo Empire. Even many of the great Yin divine race's experts, monarchs, and leaders were killed by him one by one. Such a glorious and proud battle record could be said to have shocked the boundless heaven continent. Even the other 3 continents spread his legend. The entire divine realm spread his title, Divine King Zhuoyuo. When they heard this, Bai Long and Qian Yu looked forward to it. Ji Wushuang was also quite impressed and full of curiosity. Yun Yao heard the key point and asked, in that case, that divine King Zhuoyuo was able to rise against the heavens because of this mysterious black light. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said, that's right. Legend has it that divine King Zhuoyuo's divine power is this mysterious black light. It can devour and annihilate all divine power. He can transform into an abyss that blots out the sky and instantly devour 100,000 heavenly gods of the great Yin divine race and devour all of their divine power. He is invincible. The more heavenly gods he kills, the stronger his devouring power. To put it simply, he almost doesn't need to cultivate himself. He only needs to devour the power of other heavenly gods to quickly become stronger. Jiku, Bai Long, and the others were enlightened. I see. No wonder divine King Zhuoyuo rose so quickly, devouring the power of other heavenly gods without cultivating himself. This is simply heaven-defying. Ji Wushuang was also full of longing and could not help but say, Wushuang doesn't like to cultivate in seclusion. If I can obtain this power, I can become stronger without cultivating. How good would that be? She was pure and kind. Not only did she not like to cultivate, but she also did not like fighting and killing. Ji Tianxing smiled and shook his head. This mysterious devouring power has a heaven-defying effect, but it's also a fatal poison. Divine King Zhuo relied on his devouring power to defeat the great Yin divine race in 800 years and ruled over a dozen divine nations. He was dazzling and brilliant to the extreme. However, he was short-lived in the end. After only 200 years of being the Zhuo divine race's monarch, he exploded and died. There was no helping it. His strength grew too quickly, and his divine Tao foundation was chaotic and violent. There were many fatal flaws. Moreover, he was too conceited and arrogant. He offended many powerful divine races. In the end, he died tragically under the siege of several heavenly gods and turned into ashes. Chapter 2770. Ji Tianxing's story was short. The content was also rather rough or even crude. However, they were all smart people. After thinking for a bit, they understood the reason behind it and started to discuss it. Cultivating martial and divine Taos is like building a tall building. One has to lay a good foundation, layer by layer, until the building is completed. Only then can the building be stable for hundreds or thousands of years without collapsing. Divine King Zhuo used the devouring technique to seize the power of other gods. His growth was rapid, but his divine Tao foundation was like a building that was built haphazardly. Not only was the foundation unstable, but the layers were also filled with impurities. There were even many flaws and loopholes. It's fine if the building isn't tall, but when it reaches a certain height, it will collapse. Yes, this analogy is very vivid. That's why cultivating martial and divine Taos requires one to take one step at a time. One can't be greedy for shortcuts. No matter how powerful a god king is, no matter how heaven-defying a genius is, it's just a flash in the pan. It's like a shooting star in the sky, disappearing in the blink of an eye. What's the point? It's a pity that God King Zhuo died. If he was wise enough, he would have conserved his energy when he reached the peak and eliminated his danger first. Forgetting to fight will lead to danger, and fighting will lead to death. When Ji Wuxuang heard the adults discussing, she couldn't help but pout, feeling somewhat indignant. She looked up at Ji Tianxing and revealed a reluctant expression. "Father, are you saying that this devouring divine power will harm people? It's a fatal poison, and we can't refine it?" Ji Tianxing smiled and shook his head. He explained, "Wuxuang, this is a fortuitous encounter of the heavenly Tao. It's a divine power that billions of gods yearn for even in their dreams. It wasn't easy for us to encounter it. How can we give it up?" Ji Wuxuang nodded and then asked, "But you just said that God King Zhuo was killed by this kind of divine power." Ji Tianxing explained patiently. God King Zhuo's foresight, knowledge, and ability weren't enough. He didn't have the ability to control the devouring divine power. He was born lowly and had been oppressed and enslaved by the great Yin god clan for generations. He had long hated them to the core. Therefore, after he obtained the fortuitous encounter, he madly increased his strength, madly slaughtering and taking revenge. By the time he was strong enough and discovered the problem with his body, it was already too late. There was no way to cure it, which led to his death. But we're different. We won't be as impatient as him, raising our strength without regard for the consequences. Only then did Ji Wuxuang dispel the misgivings in his heart. His little face revealed a slight smile as he said with a nod, "And I knew that Father would definitely be able to solve this problem." Yin Yao smiled bitterly and reminded her, "Shuang, we can't refine the devouring godly power. Don't be happy too early." Hearing her words, everyone woke up from their joy and looked at Ji Tianxing in unison. Yin Yao's eyes were also full of expectation. She said earnestly, "Tianxing, only you and Ku haven't tried it yet." Ji Tianxing nodded and said to Ji Ku, "Ku, try and see if you can refine it." Ji Ku did not hesitate. He stepped in front of the black light vortex and raised his palms to release the five-colored divine flame, which he injected into the black light vortex. Swoosh! In an instant, the incomparably violent five-color divine flame expelled the surrounding lightning liquid. With her, as the center, the area within a radius of 1,000 feet became empty. However, when the five-color divine flame entered the black light vortex, it was immediately swallowed. There was not even a spark. She had already expected this result, so she was not discouraged. She released her divine sense to refine the black light vortex. After 10 breaths, the result was out. It was still useless. As soon as her divine sense entered the black light vortex, it was completely swallowed. Next, she tried her best and tried several methods. The result was failure. I can't refine the devouring godly power either. Ji-Ku shook his head helplessly and retreated into the crowd. Everyone's gaze fell on Ji Tianxing. His expression became serious. Under everyone's gaze, he walked to the black light vortex. Everyone had already tried the 5 elements: star, ice, wind, and other godly powers. He did not waste time trying. He directly released the earth, transformation, and godly thunder laws. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 godly powers of different colors flew into the black light vortex. In the blink of an eye, the 3 godly powers were swallowed. Not a single drop was left. Ji Tianxing failed. He released an invisible divine sense and slowly approached the black light vortex. After 10 breaths, his divine sense was also swallowed by the black light. He failed again. Next, he forced out a drop of divine blood and injected it into the black light vortex. He wanted to use the divine blood to refine the devouring godly power using a secret technique. However, after 15 minutes, the divine blood was swallowed, and the secret technique also failed. Ji Tianxing frowned. His expression became even more serious. Everyone was also worried. They secretly transmitted their voices to discuss. The heavenly path opportunity is right in front of us, but we can't refine it. How worrying. Brother Tianxing even used the divine blood, but he still can't do anything. What should we do? We can't just look at the heavenly path opportunity and give up helplessly, right? Even Master can't refine it. What kind of fortuitous encounter did divine King Jiuluo have back then? Everyone was worried and anxious for Ji Tianxing. Their hearts were filled with unwillingness. Even Ji Tianxing clenched her small fists and silently cheered for Ji Tianxing. At this moment, Ji Tianxing thought of an idea. He took out the sword of burial of heaven. Swoosh! He poured godly power into the sword of burial of heaven and used the power of the divine sword and the origin stone to refine the black light vortex. However, the terrifying sword light released by the sword of burial of heaven and the power released by the origin stone were also swallowed by the vortex. Everyone's expressions became more and more serious. They felt even more despair. Ji Tianxing was silent. He did not give up. He thought for a moment and took out the heaven-mending orb in his mind. He flew toward the black light vortex. Swoosh! The heaven-mending orb released a dense white light that enveloped the vortex within a radius of 10 feet. Immediately, the black light vortex spun faster and crazily swallowed the holy white light. Ji Tianxing did not stop it. He continued to urge the heaven-mending orb's power. The black light vortex was like a bottomless pit. It swallowed the holy white light even more crazily. Seeing this scene, everyone sighed inwardly. Their eyes and mood became gloomy. Obviously, the heaven-mending orb was useless. However, Ji Tianxing did not give up. He was still urging the heaven-mending orb's power. He even quickly absorbed the godly power in the lightning pool and transferred it to the heaven-mending orb. 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, unknowingly, an hour had passed. Everyone was no longer worried and anxious. They had already given up hope. And at this moment, the black light vortex swallowed a huge amount of holy white light. It seemed to be full. The speed at which it swallowed the holy white light gradually slowed down. The spinning speed also became slower and slower until it completely stopped. Seeing this scene, everyone's gloomy eyes became bright. Hope was born in their hearts again. Ji Tianxing also felt relieved. However, he did not dare to relax. He continued to manipulate the heaven-mending orb's power to refine the black light vortex. Chapter 2771. Although the black vortex could devour all kinds of divine power, it could even use divine power of various attributes as nourishment to strengthen itself. However, the power of the heaven-mending orb was very special. The black vortex could not devour it. In just an hour, the vortex was filled with sacred white light. As a result, the power of the black vortex was suppressed. Ji Tianxing activated the power of the heaven-mending orb again. He wrapped the black vortex with white light and began to gradually refine it. 15 minutes later, the heaven-mending orb successfully refined a wisp of black light and absorbed it into the heaven-mending orb. Ji Tianxing's eyelids moved, and he thought to himself, "It's done." That's right, he had taken the second step to success. Next, he focused on controlling the heaven-mending orb and continued to refine the black light. As more and more black light was refined by the heaven-mending orb, a black line appeared on the sacred white heaven-mending orb. Yin Yao, Ji Ku, and the others knew that this was a real success. Everyone was relieved. They secretly breathed a sigh of relief and smiled happily. What they had to do was wait patiently. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, for days passed. 6 days later, half of the black vortex with a radius of 10 feet had been refined by the heaven-mending orb. A quarter of the pure white divine orb had also turned pure black. 12 days later, the black vortex disappeared. All of the engulfing divine power had been refined by the heaven-mending orb. The pure white heaven-mending orb had become half black and half white. In this way, not only did it not destroy the holiness of the heaven-mending orb, it made it even more mysterious. Swoosh! Ji Tianxing ended the spell and put the heaven-mending orb back into his body. Everyone immediately gathered around and began to discuss joyfully. Great! We finally got the opportunity of the heavenly Tao. Tianxing, how do you feel now? Has your strength increased? Master, the engulfing divine power has been refined by your divine orb. How will you use it in the future? Old Ji, are you going to use the engulfing divine power to quickly increase your strength? Will there be any danger? Ji Tianxing waved his hand to silence the crowd. He held Ji Wushuang's little hand and said apologetically, "Wushuang, you are the one who discovered this devouring godly power. Father should have given it to you. However, only the heaven-mending orb could refine it. In the future, only I can use it. You won't blame me, right?" Ji Wushuang wrapped her arms around his neck and shook her head with a smile. Shuang is more than happy that Father can refine the heavenly Tao's opportunity. How could I blame you? Moreover, the devouring divine power is too special. Only you can refine and control it. If you give it to me, I won't be able to refine it. Instead, I'll be harmed by it. Ji Tianxing's heart was filled with gratification. He pinched her cute little nose and said, "Shuang is still the most sensible. You are indeed Father's intimate little jacket." With that said, he said to everyone, Divine King Jiuluo was harmed because of himself. I will not repeat the same mistake. The devouring godly power had a heaven-defying effect, but it was a double-edged sword that had to be used carefully. I will use it with the help of the heaven-mending orb. It will speed up my growth and not burden me. Everyone finally understood that he had only temporarily stopped using the devouring godly power. If he wanted to use it freely or even control it himself, he would need some time. This matter was over. Ji Tianxing brought everyone and flew upwards to leave the lightning pool. All right, everyone is finished transforming. Now it's time to see the outside world. Everyone followed Ji Tianxing. They passed through the endless lightning liquid and flew towards the top of the lightning pool. The lightning pool was very deep. Everyone flew for half an hour and passed through the lightning liquid that was thousands of miles deep before they reached the top of the lightning pool. Swoosh! As everyone left the water surface, countless splashes appeared on the calm lightning pool. The purple lightning liquid exploded into thousands of lightning arcs in the sky, giving off crackling sounds. After a while, everyone flew to 1,000 miles above a lightning pool. Above them was the azure sky. Below them was the surface of the lightning pool, which was thousands of miles in radius. There were majestic mountains in all directions. And on the eastern side of the lightning pool, on the nearest mountain, there were rows upon rows of palaces and houses. Seeing this scene, everyone started to discuss with each other. Strange, when we were in the lightning pool, it felt like it was boundless and terrifying. Why is it only 1,000 miles in radius after leaving the lightning pool? Maybe the bottom of the lightning pool is very wide and the exit is very small, like a gourd. I don't think so. The lightning pool is formed by the will of the heavenly Tao. How magical is that? It must be that the lightning pool is only 1,000 miles on the outside, but the space inside is very vast. Just like old G's heaven mending pearl. It looks only the size of a thumb, but it can actually store the 5 elemental worlds. At this moment, Ji Ku suddenly reminded everyone, be careful and hide yourselves. Do not expose yourself. Ji Wu Shuang, Qian Yu, and Black Dragon were all stunned. They did not understand what he meant. Ji Tianxing explained, we are quite lucky. The location of this lightning pool is not too remote. A few hundred miles to the east of the lightning pool, there are immortals living on the mountain peak. If those immortals find out that so many of us have ascended together, they will be extremely shocked. The news will spread quickly and cause unnecessary trouble. White Dragon also nodded and said, from what I know, 7 or 8 people have ascended together. This has never happened before. We really need to hide from the limelight to avoid attracting attention and bringing trouble. Ji Ku added, the immortal realm is too big. There are tens of thousands of races and powerful warriors. This place is not as peaceful as the mortal realm. There are many different powers, and only the strong are respected. To put it simply, there were no rules and security in the immortal realm. Battles could happen at any time. Everyone had just ascended to the immortal realm and did not even know where they were. They should not be too conspicuous. Moreover, Ji Tianxing's identity was special. He came here with a deep hatred and wanted to take revenge on the deity king. At this stage, they needed to be stable and develop. After everyone understood this, Ji Tianxing kept them into the 9 heavens 10 absolutes pagoda. Ever since Ji Ku went through nirvana, he could easily control the god pagoda. After coming to the immortal realm, the 5 elemental worlds were not restricted by the heavenly Tao. He took out the god pagoda and carried it with him. At this moment, everyone entered the distorted space of the god pagoda and started to cultivate. Ji Tianxing moved alone and carried the god pagoda with him. Of course, he kept the god pagoda in his body and would not expose it easily. Swoosh! Ji Tianxing flew across the sky at lightning speed and headed east. On a mountain peak 500 miles away, there were dozens of palaces and houses. Clearly, many immortals lived there. He wanted to find out which continent and which region this was. A few seconds later, Ji Tianxing flew to the edge of the lightning pool. A hazy purple light that covered the sky sealed the entire lightning pool. This was the power of the heavenly Tao. One could only leave but not enter. It could protect the lightning pool from being disturbed. Even a deity king could not destroy the purple light, let alone enter the lightning pool. Ji Tianxing passed through the purple light easily and left the lightning pool. However, at this moment, a few balls of 5-color divine light suddenly lit up on the grassland in front of him. Swoosh! 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 In the blink of an eye, 5 immortals who were close to 10 feet tall and wearing red armor appeared out of thin air. Chapter 2772. Ji Tianxing did not know the divine realm like the back of his hand, but he was not far from it. He could tell at a glance that the 5 tall, burly, and ferocious divine beings before him were divines. The divines referred to divine beings born and raised in the divine realm. To put it simply, they were natives of the divine realm. Compared to the divine beings who ascended from the mortal domain, they had more ancient and powerful bloodlines. Not only were they more talented, but their growth was also faster. They also possessed many unique divine abilities. The 5 divines were dark red, all over. Their skin was crystal clear like rubies, and one could vaguely see the golden divine bones within. They had no hair on their bodies. Not only were they bald, but they did not even have eyelashes. Their facial features were sunken, and their eyes were dark gold. They were the great Yin divines. What a coincidence! I was just telling them about divine King Jiuluo and the great Yin divines, and now I'm meeting them? Could this be the great Yin divines' territory? Ji Tianxing raised an eyebrow and muttered to himself. At this moment, the 5 great Yin divines surrounded him. The leader of the great Yin divines sized him up with a sneer and said in a mocking tone, "We've waited for half a year, and only a small fry ascended from the lower realm. Sigh, the ants of the mortal domain are getting more and more useless." There was a hint of disappointment in his tone, and he looked at Ji Tianxing with contempt. Sensing the other party's hostility, Ji Tianxing frowned and asked expressionlessly, "What are you trying to do? Are you trying to rob me?" The divine realm revered the strong, and there was no law or order to speak of. Such things were very common. Moreover, the 5 great Yin divines were all 5th-level heavenly gods. If they wanted to stop Ji Tianxing, they would have kicked an iron plate. The 5 divines were stunned for a moment before they laughed mockingly. "Ha ha! Another fellow who's scared out of his wits." The insects of the lower realm were all overlords before they ascended. All of them are very arrogant. Now that they're in the divine realm, they're the lowliest ants. They won't be able to adapt in such a short time. There's no need to talk nonsense with him. Let him wake up and recognize his situation. The leader patted the divine saber on his waist and looked down at Ji Tianxing. He sneered coldly, "Little brat, this is the divine world, the territory of the Bloodfire divine country. It is your honor to be able to ascend to our Bloodflame divine kingdom. However, a small fry from the lower realms like you doesn't have the qualifications to join our Bloodflame divine kingdom's household register. Hand over all the divine artifacts and resources you have on you, then obediently surrender and wait for us to make a trip." Ji Tianxing narrowed his eyes. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Bloodflame divine kingdom? Join the household register? 1,000 years ago, he had never heard of something like a household register in the God realm. The gods who had just ascended to the God realm were also free to come and go as they pleased. Seeing that he was confused, the leader of the Protoss said to the one-eyed Protoss beside him, Lin Yinshur, explained to him, "Captain, what's there to explain? Just take it down." The one-eyed Protoss grinned. He was too lazy to waste his breath. The captain chuckled and said, "We are under orders to carry out a mission. Of course, we have to explain clearly before we take action. Otherwise, if these small fries mistakenly think that we are blocking the road and want to rob them, wouldn't it damage the dignity of the divine kingdom?" "All right." Lin Yinshur nodded helplessly. He stared at Ji Tianxing with his one-eyed Protoss and said arrogantly, "Little brat, we are the Thunderpool guards of the Blue Mountain City. We are under orders to guard the Thunderpool. According to the law of the Bloodflame divine country, ascenders must surrender. You have to hand over all the resources and divine artifacts on you. Then, we will put the soul fixation spell on you, and you'll follow us to the Blue Mountain City's household register. Only when you are registered in the household register will you have a legal identity and become a slave of the Bloodflame divine country. Then, the city guard will bring you to the Blue Mountain Mine. There, you will be forced to work for 500 years. After you complete the mission, you will regain your freedom and become a lowly commoner of the Blue Mountain City." Lin Yinshur explained in a serious tone. He stared at Ji Tianxing and asked, "Little brat, did you hear that clearly?" Ji Tianxing turned a deaf ear to his words. The situation now was completely different from the divine world thousands of years ago. What household register, slaves, 500 years of forced labor, and lowly commoners? These were all things that he had never heard of. No matter what, Ji Tianxing would not agree to it. In fact, he thought that it was ridiculous. He stared at the Thunderpool guard captain coldly and asked, "Is this the rule of the Bloodflame divine country or the Great Yin Empire?" The Thunderpool guard captain's body shook. He frowned and asked, "Little brat, How do you know about the Great Yin Empire? How could a small fry that just ascended from the lower realm know about the Great Yin Empire? The Thunderpool guard captain calmed down and immediately thought of another question. This white-robed little brat in front of him had just ascended to the divine world and actually knew the divine world's common language? Ji Tianxing did not answer. He said coldly again, "The Thunderpool is formed by the will of the heavens. It does not belong to any divine country or power. The people that ascended from the Thunderpool also do not belong to any divine country's people. What the Bloodflame divine country is doing is going against the will of the heavens. Did you get the approval of the Great Yin Empire?" These righteous and high-spirited words stunned the 5 Thunderpool guards. Ji Tianxing's body emitted an invisible pressure, which calmed them down and even made them fearful. The 5 of them were shocked and in disbelief. They stared at Ji Tianxing with burning eyes. After a while, the Thunderpool guard captain regained his senses. He sneered and said, "Little brat, you are indeed interesting. You are much stronger than those useless ascenders. However, you are just a small true god. Don't try to intimidate us. To tell you the truth, this law was issued by the Great Yin Empire. The Thunderpool is formed by the will of the heavens. But this place is our Bloodflame divine country's territory. You appearing here, standing on the Bloodflame divine country's territory, you are our Bloodflame divine country's slave." Ji Tianxing furrowed his brows and was somewhat stunned in his heart. He muttered to himself, "These few fellows are all level 5 celestial deity realm. How can they not perceive my strength realm?" After thinking for a while, he understood the reason. It was definitely related to the heaven-mending pearl. Most likely, the heaven-mending pearl concealed his divine spark aura, isolating the 5 Thunderpool guards' divine sense probing. The 5 Thunderpool guards guarded this place all year round and had seen countless ascenders. They were all true god realm strength. Naturally, they determined that he was a true god too. Right at this time, the Thunderpool guard captain pulled out a black divine saber and pointed at Ji Tianxing as he said coldly, "Little brat, we have guarded the Thunderpool for 100 years. The ascenders that we have seen before, if not 800, are at least 500. People who are more pretentious and more arrogant than you are too many to count. In the end, didn't they still surrender without putting up a fight? Don't waste time. This seat's patience is limited. Immediately hand over all divine artifacts and resources. Otherwise, this seat will kill you immediately and not even have a chance to be a slave." Chapter 2773. Following the Thunderpool guard captain's words, the other 4 Thunderpool guards all pulled out their swords and sabers, ready to attack. The atmosphere in the field immediately became tense. The 5 Thunderpool guards were filled with killing intent, releasing a strong pressure that enveloped Ji Tianxing. If it were other ascenders, with only the strength of a true god, they would immediately admit defeat. They would obediently give up their weapons and resources and obediently go to the Blue Mountain Mine to do 500 years of hard labor. But Ji Tianxing did not move without any fear. He stared at the Thunderpool guard captain and asked coldly, "Are you sure you want to attack, without any room for negotiation?" The Thunderpool guard captain laughed coldly. Now you want to beg for mercy? It's too late. Kneel down and allow yourself to be captured." As he said that, he stepped across the sky, holding his saber and approaching Ji Tianxing. The pressure of an Empyrean god rushed over. Ji Tianxing did not speak, his right hand holding the burial of heaven's sword, and handed it over to the Thunderpool guard captain. Seeing this, the Thunderpool guard captain was even more disdainful, his face full of disdain as he laughed coldly. "Pretentious dog, I will peel off your skin and send you to hard labor." After saying that, he was about to reach out and take the burial of heaven's sword. The other 4 Thunderpool guards also revealed a mocking cold smile. But right at this time, Ji Tianxing held the burial of heaven's sword in his right hand and suddenly stabbed toward the Thunderpool guard captain. Shwa! The dazzling golden sword light bloomed, like thunder breaking through the sky. From Ji Tianxing holding the sword to stabbing towards the Thunderpool guard captain who was 20 feet away, It only took a quarter of an instant. That sword was extremely ruthless and decisive, and its speed was unbelievably fast. Sometimes the truly powerful sword technique did not lie in the beautiful moves. Pong! Only a muffled sound could be heard. The Burial of Heaven sword instantly pierced through the red helmet, from the forehead of the Thunderpool Guard captain, into his head. The dark red, diamond-shaped divinity in his mind was pierced until it exploded on the spot. One sword kill. The Thunderpool Guard captain didn't even have time to react, nor did he have time to dodge. He didn't even expect that Ji Tianxing would dare to assassinate him. Even at the moment of his death, the mocking sneer was still frozen on his face. The other 4 Thunderpool Guards were shocked by Ji Tianxing's ruthlessness and decisiveness. They widened their eyes in horror. In the next moment, the 4 of them regained their senses and immediately brandished their swords and sabers at Ji Tianxing. Bastard, you actually killed the captain. Damn reptile, you're dead meat. Die without a burial place. Everyone be careful. He's not a true god. The 4 of them roared angrily as they executed their lost techniques and divine abilities to besiege Ji Tianxing. In an instant, Ji Tianxing's figure was engulfed by the flames and 5-color divine light that blotted out the sky. Ji Tianxing didn't evade at all. Once again, he used his ultimate sword technique and stabbed out 36 times in an instant. Swish! Swish! He turned into a phantom and flickered in the crowd. The bright golden sword light lit up, drifting erratically, and its whereabouts were strange. Bang! 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 With a muffled sound, 2 of the 4 Thunderpool Guards were instantly killed on the spot. One was hit in the forehead by a sword, and his divinity was destroyed by the Burial of Heaven. The other was hit in the back of the head by a sword. Half of his head was cut off, and his divinity was shattered. The 2 surviving Thunderpool Guards were sent flying by the sword light. The crimson armor was broken, and there were a few more wounds on the divine body. Blood flowed. The 2 of them fell more than 10 miles away. They were scared out of their wits and hurriedly turned to flee to the distant mountain peak. On that mountain peak, there were dozens of palaces and houses, and a large number of Thunderpool Guards were stationed there. Help! An ascender resisted and killed Captain Lin. While the 2 of them fled desperately, they didn't forget to shout for help. Time was tight, and the 2 of them didn't have time to send a communication jade slip. What's more, the Thunderpool Guards camp was just 500 miles away. Swish! In the next moment, Ji Tianxing teleported dozens of miles and caught up with one of the Thunderpool Guards. Swish! The Burial of Heaven stabbed out fiercely, and like a thunderbolt, it instantly pierced into the back of the Thunderpool Guard's head. Bang! The violent divine power exploded, blowing the person's head into pieces. A dark red, diamond-shaped divinity, along with the blood and brain matter, spilled out and scattered on the grass. Ji Tianxing didn't stop. He teleported another 100 miles and caught up with the last Thunderpool Guard. Swish! He raised his hand, and the sword fell. A bloody hole appeared in the back of the person's head, and his divinity was shattered on the spot. The burly corpse fell from the sky and smashed on the grass with a plop. Ji Tianxing glanced at the corpse and grabbed the spatial ring and broken divinity across the air. Then, he turned and flew to the other 4 corpses to seize the spatial ring and divinity fragments. He was very clear that the situation in the divine realm had changed. It was necessary to have a household registration to move around, and he had just arrived, so he had to accumulate wealth and resources as soon as possible to seize a large number of divinity crystals. Divinity crystals could be used for cultivation, and it was also the common currency in the divine realm. Without divinity crystals, it was difficult to move an inch. Swish! Ji Tianxing had just put away the 5 spatial rings and didn't have time to swallow the divinity fragments. On the mountain peak 500 miles away, dozens of divine lights had already lit up, and they were rushing over as fast as lightning. Obviously, the Thunderpool Guard in the camp were alarmed and were rushing over to support. Ji Tianxing turned around without hesitation and fled in the opposite direction. Burrow! He used the law of earth, and his figure flashed and burrowed into the ground, escaping as fast as lightning. After a short 10 breaths, he had escaped more than 5,000 miles and passed through more than a dozen mountain ranges. But the group of Thunder Pool guards in red armor locked onto his aura and relentlessly chased after him. The distance between the two sides was constantly closing, and they were only 300 miles apart. At the latest, dozens of Thunder Pool guards would catch up with Ji Tianxing in 100 breaths. At that time, he would definitely be besieged and in danger. Although he had all kinds of trump cards and ultimate skills, his combat strength was valiant. There were also Yin Yao, Ji Ku, and the others who could help at any time. But this was the territory of the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom, and the great Yin Divine race could be seen everywhere. Once Ji Tianxing was surrounded, he would have to face an endless stream of enemies. Even if he had great divine powers, he would definitely die. The situation was getting more and more critical. Ji Tianxing could only unleash his full strength and use the power of the law of space to teleport thousands of miles away in an instant. Swish! A white light flashed. He crossed a few mountain ranges and appeared in the jungle thousands of miles away. The more than 30 Thunderpool guards were temporarily shaken off, but they persevered and chased even more desperately. Moreover, they also sent out an emergency message to inform the nearby towns and cities to mobilize a large number of experts to surround and intercept him. Ji Tianxing had guessed this result. In desperation, he could only consume his divine power and teleport continuously in the sky. Swish! 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 Every time the white light flashed, he could teleport 500 miles away. When he was in the mortal world, he could teleport 1,000 miles away every time. Moreover, he could teleport 100 times in a row. But this was the divine realm, which was completely different from the mortal world. An ordinary 6th-level celestial god could only teleport 200 miles at a time. Teleporting 500 miles like him was already an extremely rare genius. Chapter 2774. Ji Tianxing kept running towards the west. 2 days later, he had flown more than 10 million miles. He had already left Blue Mountain City, far away from the lightning pool. All the lightning pool guards had been shaken off by him, disappearing without a trace. During this process, he passed by several towns and tribes, but he avoided them in advance. No one discovered him, and he didn't encounter any danger on the way. That evening, when the sun was setting, Ji Tianxing entered a vast mountain range and stopped to rest on a 1,000 feet tall mountain peak. He sat on a millstone at the peak of the 1,000 feet tall mountain. After circulating his energy and adjusting his breathing for a moment, he recovered to normal. If it was an ordinary god, continuously teleporting and flying over 10 million miles like him, it would consume at least half of his divine power. But he was different. His divine power was vigorous and majestic, like the sea. There was also the 5 elements world, which continuously provided him with divine power. Therefore, he was only a little mentally tired, and he would be fine after resting for a while. The sun set, and the surroundings became dark. The world was quiet, and one could vaguely hear the occasional beast roar from the distant mountains. Ji Tianxing ended his meditation and took out a few divine spark fragments. This was the divine spark of the lightning pool guard captain. Even though it was broken into 8 diamond-shaped crystals, it still emitted vigorous divine power. Ji Tianxing held the divine spark fragment in his left hand and silently released the devouring divine power. Suddenly, a black vortex the size of an egg appeared in his palm. The divine spark fragments were all swallowed by the vortex and melted at an extremely fast speed. Not long after, the 8 divine spark fragments were all swallowed, turning into violent divine power that entered the heaven-mending orb. The divine power was purified by the heaven-mending orb, removing all the impurities, leaving only 80% of the divine power. Then, the heaven-mending orb swallowed 40% of the divine power. The remaining 40% of the divine power was transferred to Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing's divine power was strengthened, and it quickly grew stronger. Moreover, He circulated his energy and found that the newly fused divine power didn't have any sluggishness or rejection. It perfectly fused with his divine power without any wastage. It was just like the divine power that he cultivated himself. This result made Ji Tianxing overjoyed. Great! It was the first time I used the devouring divine power. After being purified by the heaven-mending pearl, I was able to fuse it perfectly. In this way, not only can I increase my strength quickly, but there won't be any risks. He hurriedly took out the other 4 quintessence fragments and used the black vortex to devour them one by one. Half an hour later, he had devoured all 4 Godhead fragments. Half of the divine power that had been purified by the heaven-mending orb was refined by him, while the other half was devoured by the heaven-mending orb. He could clearly feel that his strength had increased by 20%. The power of the heaven-mending pearl had also increased slightly. Even though he was still very far from the 7th level of the celestial god realm, this was a perfect start. He believed that before long, he could advance to the 7th level celestial deity realm. When Ji Tianxing finished his cultivation, night had already fallen. He sat on the millstone and looked up at the starry sky. He murmured, "Next, I have to find a way to enter the city. I can't stay in the wilderness forever. I have to familiarize myself with this unfamiliar god realm as soon as possible and search for more clues." As soon as he finished speaking, a cold laugh filled with killing intent came from the night sky 100 miles behind him. "An ant that's going to die for sure, still thinking so much?" This was the voice of a middle-aged man. Cold, sharp, like ice shards, making people feel a bone-piercing chill. Ji Tianxing suddenly got up, his right hand gripping the sword of burial of heaven, his eyes looking coldly at the night sky, only to see a streak of crimson-red light suddenly appear in the gloomy sky. Swoosh! 3 dark red divine swords that were more than 10 feet long pierced down from the sky, aiming straight for Ji Tianxing's vital points. Those 3 divine swords were all surrounded by crimson flames, illuminating the night sky within a radius of 100 miles. Before the divine swords arrived, an unparalleled violent sword intent attacked, locking onto Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing executed the Big Dipper step, his figure flickering 3 times in a row, dodging the attacks of the 3 divine swords. Of course, those 3 divine swords all brushed past him. The scorching and violent divine flames were practically about to ignite his white robe and long hair. Bam! 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 Following 3 muffled explosions. The 3 divine swords stabbed into the grassland on the mountain peak loudly, arranged in a triangular formation. And Ji Tianxing was right in the middle of the 3 divine swords. Swoosh! A white light flashed. A middle-aged man, more than 10 feet tall, descended from the night sky, landing 1,000 feet in front of Ji Tianxing. This person was dark red all over, his facial features sunken, and his eyes sinister. He wore black armor, with a dark red wide cloak draped over his shoulders and a pair of pitch-black, ferocious combat boots on his feet. As soon as he landed, his entire body burst forth with an invisible divine power, enveloping a radius of 100 miles. All of a sudden, this area was sealed by him. There was no wind blowing or grass moving, even the air froze. Ji Tianxing looked over with a cold gaze, glanced at the badge on his chest, and recognized this person's identity. The leader of the Thunder Pool Guards, 9th level celestial deity realm. Your Excellency is not simple to actually be able to track thousands of miles, Ji Tianxing said expressionlessly. The middle-aged man stared at him like lightning and said in a deep voice, "This seat is Lin Wuji, Blue Mountain City Guard Qianhu, in charge of the Thunder Pool Guards. In the past 100 years, this seat has seen more than 400 ascenders. Those who dared to resist and escape after killing the Thunder Pool Guards, there were only 3. To be able to escape Blue Mountain City's range, worthy of this seat personally pursuing, only you alone." Lin Wuji's voice was like a great bell, saying with an imposing manner, "You killed 5 Thunder Pool Guards. You're already dead for sure. Before killing you, This seat has a question. Ji Tianxing sneered. You're going to die soon? Why ask so much? Lin Wuji frowned fiercely, his golden eyes flashing with a cold light, and said with a cold smile, "Ha ha, you're very confident. This seat understands ascenders who can successfully enter the divine realm, which one isn't a formidable character and overlord of a region. It's just a pity that you met this seat. No matter how confident you are, it's hard to escape death." Finished talking, Lin Wuji did not talk nonsense anymore and asked straightforwardly, "You can kill 5 Thunder Pool guards and escape here within 2 days. This shows that you have at least 7th level celestial deity realm strength. But you're an ascender who just stepped out of the lightning pool. It's absolutely impossible to reach 7th level celestial deity realm. There's only one explanation. You're very lucky, obtaining a heavenly Tao lucky chance in the lightning pool. Hand it over. This seat will spare you from death." Lin Wuji's tone was very certain, and it was filled with a domineering determination to get it. Ji Tianxing raised his brows and said with a ruminating smile, "You're very good to actually be able to deduce this level of reason. But very sadly, I'm not as lucky as you think. What heavenly Tao lucky chance? I've never heard of it." Ji Tianxing denied flatly, because he borrowed Earth Law and sensed another obscure powerhouse's aura. It was in that deep ravine 200 miles away, and it was very well hidden. Being in a place where danger lurked everywhere, he had to be vigilant. Lin Wuji naturally did not believe and laughed contemptuously as he said, "Ha ha, brat, since you don't admit it, then this seat will kill you, then search for you personally. But this seat still advises you the surrounding 500 million miles is my blood flame divine kingdom's territory. It's already closed in from all directions. You can't escape even if you grow wings, with absolutely no hope of escaping." Chapter 2775. You talk too much. Ji Tianxing glanced at Lin Wuji and said in a low voice, "Ha ha, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Lin Wuji laughed maniacally again. With a thought, he manipulated the 2 flaming divine swords and stabbed them at Ji Tianxing as fast as light. The other flaming sword flew into his hand. His left hand shot out a sky full of flames while his right hand waved the sword. In a flash, he was in front of Ji Tianxing. A level 9 celestial god was indeed powerful. However, Ji Tianxing's strength was not any weaker than his. Celestial dragon tyrant body. Ji Tianxing's body glowed with golden light. In an instant, he turned into a 300-meter tall giant. His blood was boiling, and his divine power was surging. His combat power increased by 6 times in an instant. He swept out his left palm and slapped the 2 flaming swords away. He waved the burial of heaven in his right hand and attacked Lin Wuji violently. The lightning sword light that covered the sky and covered the earth poured down like a torrential rain. Bam! 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 Lin Wuji's sword Dao mystique was completely defeated. After exchanging a few moves, Lin Wuji was forced to retreat continuously, attacking less and defending more. Ji Tianxing was like a ferocious ancient beast, completely suppressing Lin Wuji in his most ferocious and domineering manner. Lin Wuji was shocked and used his mystique in anger. Soaring crimson flames, he ignited his divine blood, and divine flames burst out from his body. He also turned into a giant that was hundreds of meters tall. His body was dark red like blood jade, and the golden divine bones inside could be seen clearly. There were thousands of blood flames flowing inside. The 2 of them fought fiercely with all their might, shaking the earth and filling the sky with sparks. After a short 100 breaths, everything within 100 miles was flattened, and the mountains in the distance were turned into a sea of fire. The divine power hidden in the dark retreated 150 miles and continued to hide. Soon, 15 minutes passed. Lin Wuji was forced to retreat again and again. There were more than 20 wounds on his body, and his god blood spurted out. Ji Tianxing seized the opportunity to slash apart a flaming sword and landed a punch on Lin Wuji. Dragon Elephant Divine Fist. The mountain-sized dragon elephant phantom crashed into Lin Wuji and sent him flying hundreds of miles away, smashing into half a mountain. Lin Wuji crawled up from the rubble. He was already heavily injured, blood spurting out from his 7 orifices. Between his chest and abdomen, there was a large hole where divine blood flowed out. Impossible. This was absolutely impossible. He's just a reptile that just ascended. Even if he obtained the heavenly Tao's opportunity, it's impossible for him to be so powerful. Lin Wuji was shocked and enraged at the same time, roaring like a madman. He could not believe that Ji Tianxing, who had just ascended for 2 days, already had the strength of a 9th-level heavenly god and severely injured him. Such a miracle was too absurd. But on second thought, Lin Wuji knew that it must have been caused by the heavenly Tao. Exactly what fortuitous encounter of the heavenly Tao did this animal obtain to actually be so formidable? No way. I can't die. I must report this secret to the city lord and the monarch. Thinking of this, Lin Wuji did not continue fighting. After feinting 2 moves, he turned and fled. Just as he pulled away from Ji Tianxing, he could not wait to take out his communication jade slip and send out message. Whoosh! The dark red jade slip flew into the sky and disappeared in the blink of an eye. After sending out the communication jade slip, Lin Wuji heaved a sigh of relief and continued to teleport away. However, he had just teleported 400 miles and appeared on the peak of a mountain. Suddenly, a shocking saber light slashed over from the side, right above his head. Damn it, he actually has an accomplice? Lin Wuji was shocked and instinctively waved his 2 swords to block that shocking saber light. Kaboom! Amidst the deafening loud noise, the dark green saber light that was thousands of feet long was shattered into pieces. Lin Wuji was also smashed into the mountain. His arms could not stop trembling, and he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. The mountain below his feet was shattered into pieces, and more than half of it collapsed. He was buried in the ruins, and countless rocks and soil poured down. Before he could fly out, Ji Tianxing had already charged over with his sword. Earth imprisonment. Ji Tianxing used the law of earth and enveloped the collapsed mountain. The mountain within 100 miles was instantly compressed into a 10-mile golden mountain and imprisoned Lin Wuji. Then, Ji Tianxing held the sword of burial of heaven with both hands and slashed down from the sky. Sky-splitting sword. The dazzling golden sword light that was thousands of feet long slashed down with rolling thunder. Lin Wuji struggled and raised his 2 swords to block, slashing out dozens of flaming swords. Bang! 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 However, those flaming swords were all shattered into pieces. The sword of burial of heaven was unstoppable and hit Lin Wuji with a boom. Immediately, metal and stone splashed and dark red, divine blood splattered. Lin Wuji's giant head was split in half by the sword of burial of heaven. Swoosh! A dark red, diamond-shaped godhead flew toward the east at the highest speed possible, along with the blood and minced flesh that filled the sky. However, another blade light slashed from the dark and intercepted Lin Wuji's godhead. Boom! With a muffled sound, the blade light suddenly exploded. Lin Wuji's godhead also flew back, its light much dimmer. Ji Tianxing took the opportunity to swing his sword and slash down with all his strength. Crack! With a crisp explosion, Lin Wuji's godhead was hit by the sword of burial of heaven and exploded into dozens of pieces. Before those pieces fell to the ground, Ji Tianxing waved his hand and captured all the godhead pieces. After putting away the godhead pieces, he turned around and flew away without hesitation, wanting to leave this place. At this moment, a green-robed figure flew out of the darkness and shouted, "Brother, please wait." Ji Tianxing turned a deaf ear to him and teleported to the west. Even though the green-robed figure had helped him kill Lin Wuji, he knew that the green-robed figure had to have some ulterior motives. They didn't know each other, so he didn't need to be entangled with him. Moreover, the battle here was so loud that it could be sensed from thousands of miles away. He had to leave this place as soon as possible, or he would be surrounded by a large group of experts. Swish! With a flash of white light, Ji Tianxing teleported thousands of miles away and disappeared into the darkness. Why don't you trust me at all? The green-robed figure smiled bitterly and quickly teleported to chase after him. After 100 seconds, both of them had teleported tens of thousands of miles away. However, the green-robed figure was getting further and further away from Ji Tianxing. He had no choice but to take out a greenwood compass and use his ultimate skill. Distance shrink. Swish! With a flash of light, the green-robed figure crossed 8,000 miles and appeared on a mountain peak. He held the greenwood compass in his left hand and put his right hand behind his back. He stood in the sky with a smile and looked at the night sky in the west. After 3 short breaths, swish! Ji Tianxing teleported and appeared in front of the green-robed figure. They were thousands of feet apart. The green-robed figure smiled and said, "Brother, why do you have to be so distant? I mean you no harm, and I even helped you kill Lin Wuji just now. Why don't you stay for 100 seconds and we could talk?" Chapter 2776. Ji Tianxing stared at the green-robed figure expressionlessly, not speaking. This was a divine race youth with a handsome face and a tall figure. This person was more than 2 meters tall, with a fair complexion, a high-nosed bridge, and a pair of azure-blue eyes. A head of dark green hair draped over his shoulders, covering more than half of a pair of pointy ears. Pure white and slender hands had 6 fingers, and the nails were dark green in color. Ji Tianxing thought for a moment. This divine race youth seemed to be from the Azure Forest clan. 10,000 years ago, the Azure Forest clan spread across the 4 continents of the divine realm. They were very prosperous, with as many as 10 billion people. Among the myriad races of the divine realm, the Azure Forest clan once ranked in the top 100. As long as there were forests, flowers, and trees, there was a possibility of seeing the Azure Forest clan. But because of many reasons, the Azure Forest clan started to decline several thousand years ago. 1,000 years ago, the glorious Azure Forest clan declined to the extreme, fading out of the vision of countless divine beings. Ji Tianxing also did not expect that he would actually encounter an Azure Forest clan here. Furthermore, he was a relatively young youth with outstanding talent. His strength reached level 8 celestial deity realm. At the same time that Ji Tianxing sized up the green-robed youth, the other party was also sizing him up. His eyes were filled with praise and admiration. The 2 people were silent. After 10 breaths, the green-robed youth finally clasped his hands and bowed, taking the initiative to speak. "This brother, I'm Zhu Qingchen. Greetings." Ji Tianxing just nodded slightly and did not report his name. Instead, he asked, "Zhu Qingchen, if I didn't guess wrongly, you should be from the Azure Forest clan. Speak, what faction is behind you, and who are you representing to find me?" Zhu Qingchen was stunned and asked in disbelief, "Brother, do you actually know about the Azure Forest clan?" He was simply stunned. If not for seeing Ji Tianxing step out of the lightning pool with his own eyes, he would have thought that Ji Tianxing had already been in the divine realm for many years. How could an ascender who just entered the divine realm possibly know about the Azure Forest clan? Something strange. There must be something strange. Zhu Qingchen was filled with shock, becoming even more determined to rope in Ji Tianxing. He bowed to Ji Tianxing again and said, "Brother's insight is like a torch. Qingcheng admires you greatly." "Brother, you're right. I'm a citizen of the Qinglin clan. Tonight, I passed by this place and coincidentally saw you fighting with Lin Wuji. I felt like an old friend to you at first sight, so I decided to help you. I'm just a wild crane. I don't represent any power." Ji Tianxing glanced at him and sneered, "Huh? Would idle clouds and wild cranes be hiding near the lightning pool and follow me all the way here? Forget it. Since you don't have any sincerity, then we have nothing to talk about." With that, he turned to leave. Zhu Qingchen was shocked again. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. Indeed, Ji Tianxing was right. Previously, he had been keeping watch near the lightning pool, secretly following Ji Tianxing here. When he saw Lin Wuji chasing after him, he hid at the side. He waited until the crucial moment to kill Ji Tianxing. He wanted Ji Tianxing to owe him a favor. This way, he would be able to quickly gain Ji Tianxing's trust. But he didn't expect that Ji Tianxing had already seen through all of this. Zhu Qingcheng was shocked and embarrassed. He hurriedly waved his hand and shouted, "Brother, please wait. Please listen to my explanation. I didn't mean to hide it. It's just that the power behind me is somewhat special. You're so wary of me. How would I dare to tell you?" As he spoke, his figure flashed and flew in front of Ji Tianxing, blocking his path again. "Brother, please give me another chance. I won't hide it anymore." Ji Tianxing looked at him calmly and said, "Speak." Zhu Qingcheng tidied his green robe and long hair. He transmitted his voice, "Brother, I can tell you my true identity and purpose of coming here. But before that, I would like to ask you to tell me your name." "Tianxing," Ji Tianxing said indifferently. "Brother Tianxing." Zhu Qingcheng cupped his fists and transmitted his voice. "To be honest, I'm from the Origin Returning Association. I'm the External Affairs Emissary of the Origin Returning Association. I'm in charge of rescuing the Ascenders of Blue Mountain City. Other than that, I have another mission, which is to rescue and gather the enemies of the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom." "Origin Returning Association? Rescue the Ascenders?" Ji Tianxing raised an eyebrow. Zhu Qingcheng nodded and said, "That's right. 100 years ago, a lightning pool appeared outside Blue Mountain City. The Bloodfire Divine Kingdom immediately ordered a large number of guards to guard it. Any Ascenders who walked out of the lightning pool were captured by Blue Mountain City and forced to work in the mines. After working for 500 years, they would be given a lowly status in the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom. This law was issued by the Great Yin Empire and had been implemented 800 years ago. Moreover, the citizens of the Great Yin Empire are divided into 3 classes. The first class, Great Yin Divine Race, has the highest status. The other divine races are the second class. The Ascenders from the lower realms are the third class. They have the lowest status." Ji Tianxing immediately understood what he meant. He continued, "Therefore, many divine races resisted this move, especially the Ascenders from the lower realms." Zhu Qingcheng nodded and said, "That's right. Over the past 100 years, Blue Mountain City has captured more than 400 Ascenders. Half of them are forced to work in the mines, while the other half are resisting fiercely. Many Ascenders risked their lives and tried to escape the mines. Some Ascenders were like you. They resisted as soon as they walked out of the lightning pool. As for the other divine races, not all of them were against it. Many of them muddled through and tried to curry favor with the Great Yin Divine Race so that they could live comfortably. Only a small number of divine races were suppressed and massacred by the Great Yin Divine Race and formed a blood feud. That's why they resisted with all their might." Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and asked, "In that case, the Greenwood tribe was massacred and formed a blood feud with the Great Yin Divine Race?" "Yes," Zhu Qingcheng explained. "More than 2,000 years ago, there were thousands of Greenwood tribes and millions of Greenwood tribe members in the Great Yin Empire. But now there's not a single Greenwood tribe. There are less than 100 Greenwood tribe members who are still alive." Ji Tianxing asked again, "How many people are there in the Origin Returning Association? Do they all have a blood feud with the Great Yin Divine Race?" Zhu Qingcheng nodded. "Currently, there are more than 300 of them. More than 60 of them are Ascenders we rescued. The remaining 200 or so are all divine races who were persecuted by the Great Yin Divine Race." Ji Tianxing raised an eyebrow and said, "The Origin Returning Association's base is in the Bloodflame Divine Nation? You dare to go against the Great Yin Divine Race with so few of you? I'm afraid Blue Mountain City only needs to send 1,000 city guards to annihilate all of you, right?" Zhu Qingcheng was stumped by his words. She smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Tianxing, you can't say that. Although there aren't many of us in the Origin Returning Association, we're all elites. Especially our 2 chairmen and 4 great elders. They're all divine Lord Realm powerhouses. Of course, our current goal isn't to go against the Great Yin Divine Race. Our main goal is to provide a safe haven for those who were persecuted by the Great Yin Divine Race." Chapter 2777. What was a place to settle down? It was just huddling together for warmth. Zhu Qingqing's words were more tactful, but Ji Tianxing was well aware of it. However, he was not interested in the Origin Returning Association, so he did not ask anymore. He thought to himself, I vaguely remember that the Great Yin Empire is located in the north of the Boundless Heaven continent. There are 18 divine nations under its rule. I didn't expect that we would actually ascend to the Boundless Heaven continent. To reach the Qian Kuan continent, not only do we have to cross 2 continents, but we also have to cross an ocean. Unfortunately, only godly kings are qualified to leave the Boundless Heaven continent. Ji Tianxing's territory back then was on the Qian Kuan continent. He really wanted to go back and see what the divine nation that was loyal to him back then was like now. Were the former disciples, guards, and fans still alive now? However, he was currently on the Boundless Heaven continent. He had to reach the godly king realm before he could cross the continent and the ocean. He had to stay on the Boundless Heaven continent for the next few hundred years. At this moment, Zhu Qingsheng saw that he was silent and was secretly delighted. He asked a few questions about the Origin Returning Association just now. Now that he's silent, he must be considering whether to join us or not. I definitely can't miss such a special and mysterious genius. I must pull him into the Origin Returning Association. At this thought, Zhu Qingsheng said, Brother Tianxing, you've just ascended to the godly realm, so you must be very unfamiliar with this place. Moreover, you killed Lin Wuji and 5 Thunderpool guards. You're currently wanted by the Bloodfire Divine Nation. No matter where you go, you'll be besieged by the Great Yin Divine Race. I know you're powerful and resourceful. You're definitely not afraid of the Great Yin Divine Race's revenge. But you're all alone after all, and your forces are weak. Your situation is too dangerous. Why don't you come with me to the Origin Returning Association and stay for a while? Not only can you hide temporarily, but you can also familiarize yourself with the situation here as soon as possible. Zhu Qingqing's attitude was very friendly and not arrogant at all. Seeing that Ji Tianxing was silent, he struck while the iron was hot and said, I know that you don't know enough about the Origin Returning Association and are still wary. But that's all right. The Origin Returning Association has never forced people to do things against their will, and we won't force anyone to join us. You can decide whether to stay or leave after you understand the Origin Returning Association. Ji Tianxing declined to comment and asked, Where is the Gui Yuan Association's main camp? Is it safe? Zhu Qingsheng thought that he was going to agree and was even more surprised. However, he feigned a troubled expression as he said, Brother Tianxing, you should know that we can't easily reveal the location of our base. Otherwise, we'll be surrounded by the Great Yin Divines. For the safety of more than 300 brothers, I shouldn't have told you. But I felt like you were an old friend at first sight and felt that you were trustworthy, so I made an exception for you. Our Origin Returning Association's headquarters is in the Sunset Sea region, north of the Bloodflame Divine Kingdom. If it was a normal person, they definitely wouldn't be able to withstand Zhu Qingcheng's kindness and would have to dispel the worries in their hearts. However, Ji Tianxing frowned and asked expressionlessly, Sunset Sea? That was the territory of the Sea Beasts. The Sea Beast clan is the most xenophobic. If the Origin Returning Association associates themselves with them, wouldn't they have long become the Sea Beast dinner? Zhu Qingcheng's heart skipped a beat. Cold sweat broke out on her back. A look of astonishment flashed across his eyes as he roared in his heart. What the hell? Didn't this kid just ascend? He actually knows about the Sunset Sea region? He even knows about the Sea Beast clan? This guy is too strange. How can he be a new ascendant? Although she was shocked, Zhu Qingcheng's expression didn't change. She quickly explained, Brother Tianxing's knowledge is extraordinary. It's really unexpected. However, Brother Tianxing, you misunderstood. How can our Origin Returning Association associate ourselves with the ferocious sea beasts? To be honest, our headquarters is on an island near the sea. That's the border between the Great Yin Empire and the Sunset Sea region. The Great Yin Divine Kingdom doesn't dare to step into that place, and the sea beasts won't come close either. Ji Tianxing nodded and didn't pursue the matter any further. He looked at Zhu Qingcheng expressionlessly and said calmly, I won't go with you to the Origin Returning Association. I have my own arrangements and plans. You don't have to waste your breath. You can pretend that nothing happened tonight." After that, Ji Tianxing turned and flew away. Zhu Qingcheng quickly caught up with him and asked through voice transmission, "Brother Tianxing, where are you going?" "This is Green Mountain City's territory. There are great Yin Divine Kingdom elites everywhere. You'll be surrounded very soon." Ji Tianxing glanced at him and said indifferently, "You don't have to worry about where I'm going." "I don't believe that." Zhu Qingcheng said righteously, "The Origin Returning Association's duty is to protect the ascendants who are being persecuted. Brother Tianxing, it's fine if you don't go with me to the Origin Returning Association. However, you have to tell me where you're going. I have a divine artifact that can send you on your way. I guarantee that you'll be able to avoid the great Yin Divine Kingdom's encirclement." Ji Tianxing glanced at the greenwood compass in his hand and said, "I'm going to Green Mountain City. Are you sure you want to send me there?" "Huh?" Zhu Qingcheng's expression changed. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Brother Tianxing, are you kidding? The guards of Green Mountain City and Blue Mountain City are searching for you everywhere. You're walking right into their trap." Ji Tianxing was unmoved. He said indifferently, "Haven't you heard of this saying? The most dangerous place is the safest place." Zhu Qingcheng choked again. He hesitated for a moment, then gritted his teeth as though he had made up his mind about something. Then he caught up to Ji Tianxing again, took out a dark red token, and handed it to Ji Tianxing. "Brother Tianxing, as the Origin Returning Association's Foreign Affairs envoy, I can't just sit by and watch you die in Green Mountain City. This is Green Mountain City's household registration token. It's registered as a second-class divine kingdom. You can only enter and leave Bloodflame Divine Kingdom cities with this token. If you don't have it, you'll be captured by the guards immediately and sent to the mines for hard labor." Ji Tianxing stopped flying and turned to look at the household registration token. He asked Zhu Qingcheng, "I've never met you before, and I won't join the Origin Returning Association. Why are you giving me a household registration token?" Zhu Qingcheng smiled and said, "Firstly, Lin Wuji killed more than 10 of our brothers. We have a blood feud with him. Tonight, you killed Lin Wuji, which can be considered as avenging us. Secondly, even if you don't join the Origin Returning Association, it's fine. We've known each other for a while, so it's good to form a good relationship. In the future, if you're in danger or have any difficulties, come find me. I'll still help you." Then he took out a communication jade slip and handed it to Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing knew that if he really needed Zhu Qingcheng's help in the future, he would have to join the Origin Returning Association. But he believed that day wouldn't come. After thinking for a moment, Ji Tianxing took the household registration token and the communication jade slip. He bowed to Zhu Qingcheng and said, "Thank you, Brother Zhu. I owe you a favor, and I'll definitely repay it in the future. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave now." Then he turned and flew to the west, quickly disappearing into the night sky. Chapter 2778. Zhu Qingxing stood where he was and watched as Ji Tianxing disappeared into the night sky. After a long while, he retracted his gaze and muttered with a frown, "This guy is really arrogant and vigilant." He understood that Ji Tianxing was talking about owing him a favor, not owing the Origin Returning Association a favor. This meant that Ji Tianxing had never considered joining the Origin Gathering Association. However, it's normal for a genius with a mysterious background like him to be a little arrogant. "I have to report this to the president as soon as possible. I believe the president will have a way to recruit him." Zhu Qingcheng murmured to herself. She hurriedly took out a communication jade slip and reported the matter in detail. After sending the transmission jade slip, he entered the vast forest and quickly left. Ji Tianxing flew west. After flying 1,000,000 miles, he stopped to rest. Hiding in a mountain, he took out Lin Wuji's quintessence fragment and devoured it. Lin Wuji was stronger, and his divine power was purer. After refining the quintessence fragment, Ji Tianxing and the heaven-mending pearl each received half of the divine power. Apart from that, Lin Wuji's quintessence fragment had condensed 9 laws. Among the heavenly deities, he was already considered an outstanding figure. After the quintessence fragment shattered, 4 laws were damaged. As for the other 5 perfectly preserved laws, Ji Tianxing had already mastered 3 of them. Therefore, he refined the other 2 laws as well. One was the law of blood flame, and the other was the law of dark flame. They were unique laws that only the great Yin divine clan possessed. In this way, Ji Tianxing had grasped as many as 14 laws. After devouring a sea of divine power, his strength increased by 30%, and he continued to advance toward the 7th level of the heavenly god realm. After cultivating for an hour, he continued on his way, heading straight for Green Mountain City. Along the way, he encountered more than a dozen great Yin divine clan elites. Clearly, they were Azure Mountain City's guards who had been ordered to search for him in the mountains. Naturally, he would not come into direct contact with them and avoided them in advance. The next morning, the sun had just risen. Ji Tianxing left the endless mountains and arrived at Azure Mountain City's gates. He knew that Lin Wuji had sent out a message before he died. The guards of Blue Mountain City and Green Mountain City probably already knew about his appearance and characteristics. If he continued to maintain his original appearance, he might be recognized. Thus, he used the law of change to slightly change his appearance. He turned into a young man who was more than 10 feet tall and had a burly body. He was dressed in a black robe. His facial features had also changed slightly. He was no longer as handsome and heroic as before. Instead, he looked slightly more ordinary. This was especially true for his eyes, which easily revealed his extraordinary temperament. Therefore, he turned his eyes golden as well. His appearance looked like that of an ordinary Protoss, so he did not attract much attention. Qingshan City was huge. The city had a radius of 1,000 miles and was situated on a grassland surrounded by mountains. The weather was pleasant. The 300-meter-tall brown city wall was built with 30-meter-long boulders. It had experienced thousands of years of vicissitudes, leaving behind mottled traces. As they got closer, they could feel the majestic pressure of the ancient city. Ji Tianxing leisurely walked towards the eastern city gate, secretly observing this majestic city. The 99-meter-tall, wide city gate was still tightly shut at this moment. On the city wall, hundreds of guards wearing fiery red armor and carrying swords and spears could be clearly seen. Those were the city guards of Green Mountain City. They all had the strength of a heavenly god. The strength of an ordinary guard was between the 2nd and 3rd level of the heavenly god realm. 4th and 5th level of the heavenly god realm could be the captain of the guards. And the city guards, Qianhu, and commanders were all above the 6th level of the heavenly god realm. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing thought to himself, currently, it seems that only the strength of the citizens of the heavenly god realm has not changed much. It was like this 1,000 years ago. Most people were void gods, the weakest at the bottom of the heavenly god realm. Then there were the large number of true gods who could only be ordinary citizens. Only heavenly gods dared to call themselves experts. They could be the guards and commanders of cities and towns. They were the backbone of countless kingdoms and forces. As for divine lord realm experts, they were usually the lords of a city or the leaders of a sect or gang. Experts above the 7th level of the divine lord realm were even rarer. They could usually rule over a kingdom. Ji Tianxing thought silently as he walked to the city gates. Outside the city gates, more than 100 people had already gathered, waiting in line to enter the city. Most of these people were the gods of Green Mountain City and the citizens of the surrounding cities. There are also a few great Yin divines who seemed to be adventurers or mercenaries. All of them were severely injured and extremely weak. Even so, they did not dare to rush or make a ruckus. They quietly waited for the city gates to open. Apart from that, there was a group of merchants who came from afar. They brought more than 20 heavenly god guards with them. They surrounded 3 bronze carriages. These carriages were pulled by 4 white-winged Pegasi. They were particularly eye-catching in the crowd. After the white-winged Pegasi landed, they waited docilely and did not make any noise. Ji Tianxing was curious. He used his divine sense to probe the bronze carriages. He immediately saw that there were more than 100 crystal balls in the bronze carriages. Each crystal ball was as big as a wash basin. There were many divine beasts sealed inside. There were divine foxes, divine leopards, divine wolves, divine pigs, divine snakes. There were all sorts of divine beasts. Ji Tianxing immediately understood that this group of merchants was in the pet business. Many gods and nobles would buy a large number of pets as mounts or battle beasts. He was about to withdraw his divine sense when a powerful wave of divine sense flashed across the first bronze carriage. Bang! Ji Tianxing's divine sense was hit. He blacked out, and his body was paralyzed for a moment. The next moment, he was back to normal. Clearly, the other party did not intend to kill him. They were just warning him with their actions. Sir, don't you think it's rude to peep at others so blatantly? A clear female voice was heard in Ji Tianxing's mind. Ji Tianxing looked up out of reflex. He saw a graceful female god wearing silver armor sitting on the first bronze carriage. She was a young female three-eyed god. She was half a step away from becoming a divine lord. She was 2 meters tall and had a golden sword hanging from her waist. She was full of vigor. A pair of icy blue eyes could be seen under the helmet. There was also an eye on her forehead that was as clear as a sapphire. When Ji Tianxing looked at her, she also turned her head and glanced at Ji Tianxing indifferently. Ji Tianxing cupped his fists at her without saying anything. It was considered an apology. The silver-armored woman did not pursue the matter. She turned her head and waited for the city gate to open. 15 minutes later, the bell on the city wall rang. Clang! Clang! It's time. Open the city gate. Then, the wide and heavy city gate slowly opened to both sides. Hundreds of red-armored guards stepped out and guarded the city gate with swords and halberds. The civilians at the front of the line quickly took out their household registration badges and handed them to the city guards for inspection. They were waiting to be let in. Chapter 2779. The citizens at the front of the line verified their household registration cards and paid 10 godstones before entering the city. Then, it was the merchant group's turn. A black-robed elder handed a jade archive to the city guard captain. The city guard captain glanced at it, and then at the 3 carriages of the merchant group before his gaze landed on the silver-armored lady. Miss Siyuan, are you here to deliver the goods personally again? It's such a long journey, and you must be tired. You should rest in the city for a few more days. The city guard captain revealed a smile and bowed to the silver-armored woman, showing respect and flattery. The silver-armored lady's expression was cold as she ignored the city guard captain's flattery. However, the black-robed elder smiled and said, "This batch of goods is very important. Of course, Miss Siyuan has to escort it personally. I heard that there's a big event in Green Mountain City, and Miss Siyuan is interested. Of course, she'll stay for a few more days." The city guard captain's eyes lit up as he hurriedly said, "If Miss Siyuan is participating, then it's a must. I congratulate Miss Siyuan in advance." The black-robed elder exchanged some pleasantries with him before leading the merchant group through the city gates and into Green Mountain City. After the merchant group entered the city guard captain stopped smiling and carried out his mission with a stern expression. A moment later, an elder from the fallen feather tribe was stopped by 2 red-armored guards. Household registration card, 10 godstones. The white-haired elder from the fallen feather tribe trembled as he took out 100 godstones. He said with a fawning expression, "Sir, I'm from Blue Mountain City. I was attacked by ferocious beasts in the wild and lost my household registration card in the fight. Please make an exception." Before the old man could finish his words, the city guard captain slapped the godstone away and ordered coldly, "You don't have a household registration token? Take him down. Send him to the mine to do hard labor for 500 years before his household registration is restored." The 2 red-armored guards acknowledged the order and immediately placed their swords on the white-haired elder's neck. No matter how the elder begged for mercy and even pleaded with tears, the red-armored guards were unmoved and quickly took him away. Seeing this, Ji Tianxing frowned as a cold light flashed in his eyes. However, the surrounding commoners did not react at all. It was obvious that they were already used to this. 100 breaths later, it was Ji Tianxing's turn. He took out the household registration card that Zhu Qingsheng had given him and handed it to the red armored guard in front of him. The red armored guard used a dark red jade plate and returned it to him after inspecting it. 10 divine stones. Ji Tianxing remained silent. With a flip of his hand, he took out 10 god stones and handed them to the red armored guard. Fortunately, when he killed the 5 Thunderpool guards earlier, he plundered their spatial rings. Those Thunderpool guards were not wealthy. Ji Tianxing only managed to obtain a batch of heavenly god-tier materials and medicinal pills, as well as tens of thousands of divine stones. However, this was enough for him to do a lot of things. Go in. The red armored guard took the 10 god stones and waved his hand. Ji Tianxing strode through the city gate and stepped onto a straight and wide road. The granite-paved road was very smooth and clean. It was 20 zhang wide and extended all the way to the center of the city. This was one of the main roads of Qingshan City. Red maple trees were planted on both sides of the road. It was fiery red and very eye-catching. Behind the rows of red maple trees was a small path for pedestrians to play. It was 30 zhang wide, and beside it were rows upon rows of houses and shops. In the many shops, there was a dazzling array of goods. Divine weapons, armors, medicinal herbs, cloth, restaurants, and tea houses had everything that one could wish for. The gods and commoners of various races strolled leisurely, strolling around the many shops. It was very relaxing. Ji Tianxing walked along the road for hundreds of miles. Along the way, he saw hundreds of thousands of commoners and gods. Whether it was the shops in the streets or the tea houses and wine shops on both sides of the road, they were all crowded and surging with people. This Qingyang city was more prosperous than he had expected. Moreover, he discovered that the commoners in the city were carefree and undisciplined from the bottom of their hearts. 99% of the commoners and gods did not wear armor or carry weapons with them. To put it simply, the entire city did not have a trace of chaos. There was also no aura of battle or killing. Instead, it was filled with peace, tranquility, and undisciplined feeling. The divine world 1,000 years ago, no matter which continent it was not like this. Fights, robberies, and killings could be seen everywhere. In such a big city, there could be conflicts at any time. Who would have thought that today, 1,000 years later, it would be so peaceful? Ji Tianxing was secretly puzzled. He was interested and curious about the situation of Qingyang City and the blood-flame divine country. For hours later, Ji Tianxing strolled for more than 200 li and walked to the square in the center of the city. This square was 30 li in radius. Not only was it wide and flat, but it was also built very delicately. It was noon. There were not many people strolling in the huge square. The hundreds of red armored guards guarding the square also had a lazy and leisurely attitude. Ji Tianxing stepped into the square. His gaze was fixed on the thousands of zhang tall statues in the middle of the square. In the middle of many squares, there would be a statue erected. This was very common. The statues in the square of a sect were usually of the founder who had founded the sect. In the square of a city, there would usually be a statue of a king or a peerless hero. In this square, there were a total of 3 statues erected. The statue in the middle was the tallest. It was thousands of zhang tall. The carving was lifelike and majestic. Even from 10 li away, Ji Tianxing could see it clearly. It was a middle-aged man with a thin body and a dark face. He wore a black robe with golden patterns. His purple hair draped over his shoulders. His face was as sharp as an axe, especially his eyes. They were as sharp as an eagle's, as if they could pierce the sky. His hands were as thin as an eagle's claws. There were 6 sharp and narrow wings on his back. His chin was also like a curved blade. It was this black-robed man who did not look graceful or luxurious. His appearance was ordinary, and his aura was somewhat sinister. But he was carved with a dignified appearance. He looked down on the world and was as domineering as the heavens overlooking the earth. When Ji Tianxing saw the statue's appearance, his footsteps froze. His brows furrowed. His eyes flashed with astonishment and killing intent. It's him. It's actually him. Without a doubt. Ji Tianxing knew the black-robed man who was carved with a domineering and dignified air. Not only did he know him, but he was also an irreconcilable enemy. Azura God King. Ji Tianxing stared at the statue and muttered in his heart. His fists were also secretly clenched. In an instant, memories from 1,000 years ago surged into his mind, evoking endless killing intent. Because back then, the 5 great god kings schemed against him. They joined forces to besiege him and snatch his heaven-punishing array diagram. And the Azura God King was one of the 5. The 5 great god kings gathered more than 10,000 divine lords and allied with various major factions. They used decades to set up a trap before finally killing him. The battle in the starry skies was unprecedented, and it was incomparably tragic. Kenshin perished with hatred. Bright Moon perished. White Dragon perished. 10,000 gods perished. Ever since Ji Tianxing recovered his memories, there was not a moment when he did not think of revenge. Chapter 2780. After a long while, Ji Tianxing's hatred and killing intent finally subsided. He stared coldly at the Azura God King's statue and thought to himself, the Azura God King comes from the firmament continent. His faction's foundation and lair are there. This is the boundless heaven continent. Why would his statue appear in a small, nameless city? Puzzled, Ji Tianxing looked at the other 2 statues. To the left of the Azura God King statue was a 600-foot tall statue. It was a tall, dark-red middle-aged man. He wore a luxurious golden robe and an imperial crown on his head. Ji Tianxing knew at a glance that it was a statue of the Great Yin divine tribe. It was very likely that it was the emperor of the Great Yin Empire. He looked to the right of the Azura God King statue. There was a 300-foot tall statue. It was also a middle-aged man of the Great Yin divine tribe. He wore luxurious golden robes and wore an imperial crown. He held a dark gold divine sword in his hands. The 3 statues were of different heights and positions. The Azura God King statue was the tallest and was in the middle. It was slightly to the front. The statue on the left was the second tallest and was a body length behind the Azura God King statue. The statue on the right was the shortest and was the furthest back. From these details, one could see that the stature of the 3 statues differed. At this moment, a Great Yin divine tribe youth dressed in luxurious robes walked over with a jade fan. He had noticed Ji Tianxing long ago. When he saw Ji Tianxing staring at the 3 statues with a strange expression, he secretly observed him for a moment. At this moment, he came to Ji Tianxing's side and sized up Ji Tianxing in confusion. He asked, "Brother, why are you in a daze? It's not even the day of worship yet, and you're already here to admire the might of great Emperor Shura and our emperor?" Ji Tianxing frowned slightly when he heard this. His heart skipped a beat. However, he remained calm. He turned to look at the youth in luxurious robes and sized him up. The finely dressed young man had a dignified appearance. He was elegant and graceful, and his words and actions carried an air of nobility. Clearly, he was a young master of the Great Yin celestial race. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly in greeting. "Did you mention Emperor Shura just now? May I ask what's going on?" The finely dressed young man was stunned for a moment. He frowned in confusion and looked at him again. Then he smiled and asked, "Brother, are you deliberately pretending to be stupid, or are you teasing me? The statue on the left is the emperor of the Great Yin Empire. If you're from another empire, it's fine if you don't recognize me, and I won't blame you for being rude. However, the statue in the middle was the incomparably noble ruler of the continent, the Azura God Emperor who looked down upon the 9 heavens. Even the laborers and farmers from the countryside had to recognize his majesty, God Emperor Azura. How could you not know him? Master of the continent, Azura God Emperor?" Ji Tianxing's heart shook as he muttered to himself. 1,000 years have passed, and the Azura God King actually took control of the boundless heaven continent and became the master of boundless heaven? How is this possible? This is too preposterous. 1,000 years ago, there were countless god kings empires, and super forces on the four continents. There has never been a god king or a force that could unify the entire continent. The Azura god king, how was this possible? Ji Tianxing found it hard to believe. He calmed himself down and asked the finely dressed young man, "Brother, I've only heard that the strongest person on the continent was called a god king. When was there such a thing as a god emperor? Could it be that the Azura god king proclaimed himself the god emperor after unifying the boundless heaven continent?" The finely dressed young man's expression became even stranger when he heard this. He looked Ji Tianxing up and down a few times before asking in a low voice, "Brother, tell me the truth. Did you lose your memory? Or are you saying that you've been cultivating in seclusion for over 900 years and know nothing about the changes on the continent? You're lucky to have met me today. If you had said this to anyone else, you would have been thrown into prison long ago. To dare blaspheme the Azura God Emperor's divine might like this is a capital offense that requires beheading." Ji Tianxing hurriedly nodded and said with a voice transmission, "Brother indeed has discerning eyes like torches and is warm-hearted. I'm very grateful. Truth be told, I mistakenly barged into a mystic realm many years ago and suffered heavy injuries, almost losing my life. A few days ago, I just escaped by a fluke, but I lost my past memories. Currently, I'm muddle-headed and feel unfamiliar with everything around me. I'll have to trouble Brother to tell me, lest I inadvertently offend the divine might and invite a fatal disaster." Only then did the finely dressed young man come to a realization and repeatedly nodded his head as he said, "So that's how it is. No wonder I saw that your expression was odd, with a blank look. Oh, right. Do you have a household registration in your country?" Ji Tianxing was just about to nod his head in agreement when the finely dressed young man waved his hand and said, "No need to mind. This young master was just asking casually. Even if you don't have a household registration, with this young master here, no one dares to check you either." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked with cupped fists, "May I ask who this brother is?" The finely dressed young man waved his jade fan, puffed out his chest, and said proudly, "This young master's surname is Qi Huangji. People call me Fair-Faced Flying Dragon. Also, the #1 rich young master of Green Mountain City, the #2 genius of Green Mountain City, the owner of the great Sun Scarlet Flame Sword, Philanthropist Qi, is also this young master. Your title is really long." Ji Tianxing muttered in his heart, but on the surface, he put on a long-awaited expression and said, "So, it's young Master Qi. You're indeed a dragon among men, a young genius." Qi Huangji was flattered and enjoyed Ji Tianxing's words. The smile on his face became even more amiable. Ji Tianxing, on the other hand, could see clearly that although this person had the strength of a 9th-level celestial god, he was a hedonistic rich young master and might not be very capable. The two exchanged a few pleasantries and exchanged identities. They could be considered acquaintances. Qi Huangji was usually idle and indulged in wine and women. In recent days, for some reason, he could no longer be ostentatious and did not want to stay in his residence. Thus, he came out to relax. Coincidentally, he met such an interesting person like Ji Tianxing. Thus, he warmly invited Ji Tianxing to the Star Moon Pavilion. The Star Moon Pavilion was one of the top restaurants in the city. Only the rich and powerful could enter it. Qi Huangji brought Ji Tianxing into the Star Moon Pavilion. Not only did the waiters receive them respectfully, but even the shopkeeper welcomed them with a smile and flattered him. Not long after, Qi Huangji led Ji Tianxing to the 3rd floor and entered his exclusive VIP room. After the fine wine and delicacies were served, Qi Huangji began to explain the matter of the Azura God Emperor. "Brother Tianxing, you have to listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. Don't spread it out after you hear it, or you'll attract trouble. 1,000 years ago, the strongest person in our great Yin Empire, or even the entire Golden Mountain region, or even the entire boundless heaven continent, was a peak godly king. However, 1,000 years ago, the Azura God Emperor understood the secrets of heaven and broke through the godly king realm to reach an even more unfathomable realm. Thus, the Azura God Emperor was known as the God Emperor. He easily defeated all the godly kings and only used 100 years to unify the entire boundless heaven continent. Since then, the Asura god emperor ruled the boundless heaven continent. He issued many oracles and formulated a series of laws. Chapter 2781. Shi Huangji drank a few cups of wine and was in a good mood. He explained the origin of the god emperor's name to Ji Tianxing without stopping and in great detail. Of course, he had not lost his mind and did not dare to openly discuss the Asura god emperor's past. In order to prevent the walls from having ears, he spoke to Ji Tianxing through telepathy. The god kings and overlords of the various domains have all submitted to the Asura god emperor. The Asura god emperor's hundreds of laws have also been carried out by the overlords of the various domains. Because of this, the entire continent has become peaceful and there has been no war for 900 years. In addition, the Asura god emperor has also issued a decree to erect statues of him in all the countries and cities. On a certain day every month, all the cities and cities will hold a pilgrimage ceremony and all the citizens will worship him devoutly. Not only his statues, but the statues of the emperors of the various empires and god nations will also be worshipped. Shi Huangji gave him a brief rundown of what he knew. Ji Tianxing listened in silence. Although he did not show it on his face, his heart was in turmoil. The Asura god king has broken through the god king realm and understood the mysteries of heaven. He has taken the final step to disrupt the mysteries of heaven and interfere with the will of heaven. It must be the eternal heavenly book. I have the heaven vanquishing formation, and those 5 bastards have the eternal heavenly book. The Asura god king has comprehended an even more profound law from the eternal heavenly book. That is how he was able to take the final step. Ji Tianxing believed that only the eternal heavenly book and the heaven vanquishing formation could help the Asura god king break through his limits and reach a higher realm. This was because both the eternal heavenly book and the heaven vanquishing formation were supreme treasures from supreme ruins. Moreover, both supreme treasures were part of the same body. The eternal heavenly book was the first half, and the heaven vanquishing formation was the second half. When Kenshin had obtained the heaven vanquishing formation, he had been besieged by the 5 god kings and countless other gods before he could comprehend the mysteries within. Ji Tianxing didn't know what happened after that and what changes the god world had undergone. However, after listening to Shi Huangji's story, Ji Tianxing could roughly guess what had happened. Asura god king, Asura god emperor. In that case, the backer of the heaven punishers, the godly king who called himself the god emperor, could be the Shurif god emperor. He unified the boundless heaven continent and became the overlord of the continent. However, he was not strong enough to fully comprehend the eternal heavenly scripture. Therefore, he issued an order for all the cities and towns on the continent to build a statue of him and worship him every month. In this way, he can harvest the power of faith of the entire boundless heaven continent and continuously increase his strength. Ji Tianxing pondered silently and vaguely guessed the truth. Murderous intent surged in his heart, and there was a hidden coldness in his eyes. However, he hid it very well, and Shi Huangji, who was beside him, did not notice. After Shi Huangji finished speaking, he asked again, "Young Master Qi, I heard that the God world has 3 other continents besides the boundless heaven continent. I wonder if the situation of the other 3 continents is the same as the boundless heaven continent. Have they also been unified? If that's the case, which god emperor are the overlords of the other 3 continents?" Ji Tianxing guessed that the Asura god king had broken through to the god emperor level. The other 4 godly kings who had besieged him might have also taken the last step and called themselves god emperor. Unexpectedly, Shi Huangji looked at him blankly and asked doubtfully, "There are 4 continents in the god world? Who told you that? Isn't this nonsense? Are those storytellers making up stories to cheat you out of your money? I only know that the boundless heaven continent is so vast that it's unimaginable. There are close to 100 regions on the continent, and our Golden Mountain region is only one of them. There are 8 empires in the Golden Mountain region, and each empire has more than 10 god nations. Our Bloodfire god nation is one of the great Yin Empire's vassal states. I don't even know how big the Bloodfire god nation is, let alone the entire great Yin Empire. At this point, Qi Huangji raised his head and drank the wine in his cup. He said proudly, "Brother Tianxing, I have a very big dream. Do you want to know?" Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said, "I'd like to hear the details." Qi Huangji was slightly drunk. He held his head high and said, "My biggest dream in this life is to be able to travel all over the Golden Mountain region, the 8 empires, and get to know the heroes of the world." Brother Tianxing, are you envious? Are you shocked? Ha ha! The territory of the Golden Mountain region is vast and boundless. Without the strength of a divine lord and sufficient wealth, it's impossible to travel all over. Only someone with my status can have the chance to realize this dream. Ji Tianxing fell silent. He had wanted to ask about the other continents, but he did not expect Qi Huangji to be so ignorant. Traveling through the entire Jinshan domain was his lifelong wish and dream. This was simply hilarious. Of course, Ji Tianxing had been a peak divine king in his previous life. He had traveled all over the 4 continents and the divine world. His experience and knowledge were only comparable to that of a peak divine king. A person like Qi Huangji was just a rich young master from a remote village. They could not be mentioned in the same breath. Ji Tianxing knew what Qi Huangji was thinking, so he did not say anything. Next, Qi Huangji told him the story of the great Yin Empire and the Bloodfire god nation. In the past few hundred years, Qi Huangji had exaggerated the deeds and major events that had been circulating among the people. Ji Tianxing listened quietly and did not comment. 2 hours later, Qi Huangji was getting more and more drunk, and he stopped talking. He patted Ji Tianxing's shoulder and said proudly, "Brother Tianxing, I'm not in a good mood today, but I met such an interesting person like you. Thank you for drinking with me. I'm in a much better mood now. You've just arrived and you've lost your memory. If you don't have anyone to rely on and have nowhere to go, why don't you come back to the Qi residence with me? Anyway, I'm a generous person and love to make friends with people with special abilities from all over the world. By the way, how strong are you? If you're a level 6 heavenly god, I'll arrange a job for you. I guarantee that you'll be respected in Green Mountain City." Ji Tianxing cupped his hands and politely declined his invitation. "Thank you for your kindness, Master Qi, but I'm not in a position to impose." Qi Huangji thought for a while and took out a bag of divine stones. "You don't even have a place to stay in Green Mountain City. Take these divine stones. It'll be convenient for you to eat and stay in the city. If you encounter any difficulties, come to the Qi residence to look for me." Ji Tianxing smiled and shook his head. "Thank you, Master Qi, but I can't accept a reward without any effort. Please take it back. I plan to stay in the Star Moon Pavilion for a few days to settle some things first." Qi Huangji looked at him deeply before taking back the bag of divine stones. He nodded and said, "Not bad. You're an interesting person. You can stay here for now. No one will dare to make things difficult for you if you mention my name. I'll take my leave first. I still have to serve that iceberg lady when I get back. Sigh, what a tough life." Chapter 2782. Qi Huangji shook his head bitterly and left, reeking of alcohol. When he reached the lobby on the first floor, he didn't forget to ask the manager to prepare a good room for Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing sat alone in the VIP room, still thinking about what Qi Huangji had said. The blue-robe manager came in person and took Ji Tianxing to the guest room. The Star Moon Pavilion was large and luxurious. Obviously, it had a powerful background. The 3-story building facing the street was just a place to drink tea and drink. The guest room was in the backyard. There was a palace and 2 courtyards, all of which were protected by a divine formation. The manager led Ji Tianxing into the Qiulan courtyard. The courtyard, with a radius of 100 meters, was clean and elegant, decorated beautifully. Not only that, but there were also 4 guards, 2 maids, and a coachman in the courtyard. Ji Tianxing had asked the manager and found that it would cost 3,000 divine stones a day to stay in this courtyard. That was a sky-high price. Normal celestial gods couldn't afford it. Ji Tianxing killed Lin Wuji and the 5 Thunderpool guards, took their interspatial rings, and got more than 20,000 divine stones. This could be considered as a small fortune. However, he was only able to pay for 8 days of stay in the Star Moon Pavilion. Ji Tianxing only mentioned when he would pay for the room. The manager bowed at once and said with a smile, "Mr. Tianxing, you must be joking. You are Mr. Qi's friend. How dare we charge you?" Obviously, Ji Tianxing had counted all the money for the room on Qi Huangji's head. This made Ji Tianxing secretly surprised. Was Qi Huangji really a tycoon? He asked around and found out from the shopkeeper that the Qi family was indeed the wealthiest family in Qingshan City. The Qi family was in the pet business, and their network was spread across half of the Bloody Blaze Divine Nation. They were indeed rich. Qi Huangji was the young master of the Qi family. He wasn't interested in cultivation or business, but he was obsessed with traveling the world. However, the rules of the Qi family were very strict. The family master was strict and rigid. Qi Huangji had no chance to leave Qingshan City unless it was something important. Therefore, Qi Huangji was very generous and hospitable to the adventurers, wanderers, and eccentrics who came from afar. After learning this information, Ji Tianxing roughly understood that Qi Huangji was a free, undisciplined, and unambitious dandy. Fortunately, this foppish young master's nature wasn't bad, and he wasn't annoying. After settling Ji Tianxing down, the shopkeeper took his leave and left Qilan Courtyard. 2 slender and enchanting maidservants of the Fox God clan entered the room, preparing to help Ji Tianxing undress and bathe. Ji Tianxing waved his hand to dismiss them and entered the secret room to practice alone. There were several divine formations set up in the 10-meter square secret room. If one cultivated here, they would not be disturbed. Ji Tianxing summoned the 9th Heaven 10 Absolutes Pagoda and summoned Yin Yao, Ji Ku, and the others. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Yin Yao, Ji Ku, Ji Wushuang, White Dragon, Qian Yu, and Black Dragon appeared in the secret room. The secret room was not big to begin with, and it looked a little cramped. "Little fox, shrink your body. You're squeezing us." "Black Dragon, curl up. Your tail is poking me." White Dragon glared at Qian Yu and Black Dragon, then growled in a low voice. After Qian Yu shrank into a watermelon-sized fur ball, Black Dragon curled up his body, and the secret room became a little more spacious. White Dragon couldn't wait to ask, "Master, have we left the lightning pool? Where are we?" Yin Yao looked at Ji Tianxing and asked, "Tianxing, did you run into any trouble when you left the lightning pool?" Ji Ku asked, "Brother Tianxing, have you settled down? Which continent are we on?" Ji Tianxing raised his hand to signal for everyone to be quiet. He said calmly, "Don't worry, everyone. Although something happened when I left the lightning pool, I'm safe now." Then he told everyone what happened after he left the lightning pool. After everyone heard what he said, they felt that it was a close call and started discussing. "I didn't expect the Great Yin Celestial Tribe to be so despicable. They actually took the resources of the Ascenders and sent them to the mines to do hard labor. Blue Mountain City's guards are searching for Brother Tianxing everywhere. We're not far from here. It's dangerous. Old Ji is lucky to have met Zhu Qingsheng and young Master Qi. That's how he settled down in Green Mountain City." "Master, how long do you plan to stay in Green Mountain City?" Ji Tianxing said calmly. "The heavenly realm now is no longer the heavenly realm of the past. The Azura God King saw through the secrets of the heavens and took the final step to break through to the God Emperor realm. Now, he rules the entire Boundless Heaven continent and has set strict rules. He even forces the people of the world to worship him regularly and provide him with power of faith. It's clear that he's plotting something. On the Boundless Heaven continent, all divine nations have a household registration system. Without a household registration card, it's difficult to move around. At any time, you might be captured and sent to the mines to do hard labor. That's why we'll stay in Green Mountain City for a while. At the very least, I have to get you a household registration card so you can have a legal identity. Also, I suspect that the Azura God Emperor is the backer of the Heaven Punishers. No matter if it's old or new, I must settle it with him. I must kill him for revenge. Jika frowned and thought for a moment. Then he asked doubtfully, Brother Tianxing, we're weak now. We don't have the right to take revenge at all. We have to lie low and wait until we're strong enough to take revenge on the Azura God Emperor. Also, when the God King's clone descended to the mortal realm, the divine abilities and power attributes he used were not like the Azura God Emperor's. I think that the Heaven Punisher's backers might be the other God Kings. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said, I've also thought about this question, but I can't confirm the answer for now. I even suspect that the other peak God Kings have also broken through to the God Emperor realm and ruled other continents. However, with our current strength, we can't leave the boundless Heaven continent, let alone cross the sea and go to other continents. Therefore, we can only stay in the boundless Heaven continent and slowly plan and investigate the truth. Everyone nodded in agreement. Yun Yao said, Tianxing, we all support your decision. This is the northernmost part of the boundless Heaven continent. The terrain is very remote. If we accumulate strength here, we won't be noticed by the Azura God Emperor. We're not afraid of him seeing through our identities. The most important thing now is that we have to get a household registration card as soon as possible so that we can move freely. Tianxing, what are your plans? Ji Tianxing said in a low voice, if we want to develop steadily, we have to hide our identities and erase all traces of the past. There are 7 people who have seen my real face and know that I'm an ascender. I killed Lin Wuji and the 5 Thunderpool guards. Only Zhu Qingcheng is still alive. Also, he saw me kill Lin Wuji with his own eyes. He will definitely guess that I have the Heavenly Tao's opportunity. No matter what, I can't join the Origin Returning Association. I won't have any contact with them in the future. Even the household registration card in my hands must be replaced as soon as possible. When I entered Qingshan City, I had already changed my appearance. I looked like an ordinary God race member. This way, I won't attract attention. Next, I plan to use Qi Huanji to change our identities. Chapter 2783. 2 hours later, everyone finished their discussion. Yin Yao, Ji Ku, and the others hadn't obtained their household registration cards yet, so they couldn't show up for the time being. They returned to the 9 Heavens, 10 Absolutes Tower and continued to cultivate in seclusion. Ji Tianxing walked out of the secret room and left the Autumn Orchid Courtyard alone. He strolled in Green Mountain City, secretly observing the city with his divine sense to understand the layout and situation. At the same time, he was also silently collecting all kinds of information. There was information about Green Mountain City, the City Lord's mansion, the city guards, and the major families in the city. When night fell, Ji Tianxing returned to the Star Moon Pavilion and entered the Autumn Orchid Courtyard. Through an afternoon of investigation, he collected a lot of useful information. In Green Mountain City, the City Lord's mansion was undoubtedly the overlord. The current City Lord was a divine lord. Because he rarely acted in the past few hundred years, his realm was unknown. In addition, there were 2 other divine lords in the City Lord's mansion. Their strength was between the 1st and 2nd level, and they were the Deputy City Lord and the Superintendent of the City Guards. Second only to the City Lord's mansion were the 5 major families. Among them was the Chief family, which was mainly involved in the pet business and had a network of connections in more than 40 cities. The current family head, Qi Tianlong, broke through to the Divine Lord realm 10 years ago. The Chief family was developing rapidly and had strong financial resources. The other 4 major families were all noble families with thousands of years of history. In terms of financial resources, they were naturally inferior to the Qi family, but their backers and forces were more powerful. In addition, Ji Tianxing also found a very important piece of information. 3 days later, a grand event would be held in Green Mountain City. The City Lord's mansion took the lead, and the 5 major families jointly organized a martial arts competition in the city square. The 6 major forces would each send 2 young geniuses, and the winner would be determined in a martial arts competition under the witness of all the people in the city. The force with the highest ranking would obtain the 10-year use of the Dark Light Cave. This was a grand event that was held once every 10 years, and it attracted the attention and discussion of the entire city. Millions of commoners were discussing this matter in secret, discussing which genius was stronger and had the highest chance of winning. When Ji Tianxing heard this news, he was still a little confused. So, he asked the people and understood the whole story. The cause of this matter had to be explained 70 years ago. 800,000 kilometers to the north of Qingshan City was the Sea of the Setting Sun. 70 years ago, several experts from the Qi family and the Qi family were hunting for mythical beasts in the coastal waters of the Setting Sun Sea region and accidentally discovered a mysterious island. Several experts entered the isolated island and chased after the two divine beasts. They unintentionally entered a mysterious cave. As a result, the strength of the two divine beasts increased dramatically in the cave, killing and injuring several experts. Only 2 experts were still alive. They hurriedly retreated from the mysterious cave and sent a request for help to their respective families. The experts from the Qi clan and Qi clan rushed to the isolated island and started investigating the mysterious cave. They successfully captured 2 divine beasts and discovered secret. Inside that mysterious cave, there were not only colorful, profound lights, but also incomparably rich divine stones and metal ores. However, there were several powerful divine beasts in the cave, as well as several monarch-grade divine formations of the Sea Beast clan. The Qi family and the Qi family did not have any divine lord experts. After paying a huge price, they were still unable to occupy the cave. Thus, they secretly found the city lord's mansion and asked for help. If they successfully occupied the cave, the 3 forces would divide the divine level stone and divine gold mines equally. However, the 2 divine lords sent by the city lord's mansion also suffered great losses one after another. When the news spread, the other 3 great families also came out in full force and rushed over to help. Hence, the 6 great forces joined forces and each displayed their abilities. They racked their brains and methods before killing the divine beasts in the cave and cracking the divine formations left behind by the Sea Beast clan. After the 6 great forces occupied the mysterious cave, they named it Mystic Light Cave. However, they were unable to come to an agreement on the issue of resource distribution. The various forces put forward various conditions, wanting to obtain more resources and treasures. In the end, the city lord made the final decision. Every 10 years, the 6 great forces would conduct a martial arts competition. Whoever won would be able to control the Mystic Light Cave for 10 years. For the sake of fairness, Divine Lord Realm experts were not allowed to participate. Only young disciples below the Divine Lord Realm and within 1,000 years old were qualified to participate in the martial arts competition. This compromise received the approval of the several great families. But the following 60 years made the 5 great families so depressed that they vomited blood. The City Lord Mansion won all 6 martial arts competitions in a row. There was no choice. The City Lord's son was seriously too strong. He had long reached the half-step Divine Lord Realm. The young disciples of the 5 great families were all defeated under his sword. Hence, the City Lord's Mansion suppressed all heroes. In these 70 years, it had always been the City Lord's Mansion occupying the Mystic Light Cave, wantonly extracting the divine stones and resources inside. The 5 great families burned with anxiety when they saw this, jealous until their eyes turned red. But they could not violate the agreement and could only fiercely drill their family disciples. The 5 great families were all looking forward to the next martial arts competition. Their family disciples could defeat the City Lord's son and seize back the Mystic Light Cave. In another 3 days' time, it would be the 7th martial arts competition. Ji Tianxing immediately understood. No wonder Qi Huangji was in a bad mood and came out alone to relieve his boredom. Ho! Although Qi Huangji has 9th level celestial deity strength, he's also pulling up seedlings to help them grow his foundation weak. With his combat strength, facing off against a half-step Divine Lord Realm expert, he'll definitely be defeated in less than 10 moves. Ji Tianxing secretly pondered and had an idea very soon. However, he could not take the initiative for this matter. He had to get Qi Huangji to speak first. Then he would seize the opportunity to take action. Only then could the plan go smoothly. Hence, he meditated and cultivated in the hidden chamber, waiting silently. Without his orders, the guards and two maids did not dare to disturb him. Before he knew it, a whole day had passed. No one stepped into Qiulan courtyard. It was time for the evening lights to be lit again. Ji Tianxing was still cultivating in the hidden chamber, not in a hurry at all. Time passed silently. 4 hours later, it was late at night. Suddenly, the guard's voice came from outside the hidden chamber. Reporting to young Master Tianxing, an important guest has come to visit. Hearing the guard's report, Ji Tianxing opened his eyes and a smile appeared on his face. He's really here. He did not know anyone in Qingshan City. Other than Qi Huangji, who else would come to visit him? Hence, Ji Tianxing got up and left the hidden chamber, walking toward the living room. As soon as he stepped into the living room, he saw Qi Huangji sitting at the table, looking dejected and depressed. Qi Huangji was holding a wine cup and drinking by himself, while two maids of the Divine Fox clan were massaging his shoulders and legs. Ji Tianxing greeted him with a smile and asked knowingly, "Young Master Qi, what brings you here so late at night?" Qi Huangji gestured for him to sit down and poured him a cup of wine, saying, "The night is long, and I'm not in the mood to sleep. Since I have nothing to do, I came to visit Brother Tianxing and have a drink with you." Ji Tianxing held the wine cup but did not drink. He smiled and said, "Looking at your worried face, you must have something on your mind. I'm curious, what in Qingshan City can make young Master Qi so anxious?" Chapter 2784. Qi Huangji was also an interesting person. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't be close friends with Ji Tianxing, nor would they confide in him. At most, they would say a few perfunctory words and wouldn't tell him the real reason. Of course, most people wouldn't ask Ji Tianxing to stay in Qiulan courtyard after meeting him. It was too expensive. Qi Huangji put down his wine cup and stared straight at Ji Tianxing. "Brother Tianxing, do you really want to know the reason?" Ji Tianxing maintained his smile and nodded. Qi Huangji hesitated for a moment, then dismissed the two maids. When only he and Ji Tianxing were left in the living room, he lowered his voice and said, "Brother Tianxing, let me ask you a question first. If your parents love you very much, but they force you to do something impossible, what will you do?" Ji Tianxing said without hesitation, "As long as you dare to think and do it, there's nothing impossible in this world." Qi Huangji was stunned for a moment, then gave him a thumbs up. "Brother Tianxing, you're really an interesting and special person. However, I really can't do it. You know Yuan Jia, right? He's the eldest son of the Qingshan City Lord, our young lord. He was born more than 90 years after me, but he became a half-step divine lord 80 years ago. My father forced me to defeat him, or I would have to marry into the Sky Snow City's Ning family and marry that iceberg Ning Siyuan. Marry into the Sky Snow City's Ning family? Marry that iceberg?" Ji Tianxing was stunned for a moment, then couldn't help laughing. "Isn't it funny?" Qi Huangji said with a bitter smile on his face. "Everyone in Qingshan City thinks it's hilarious and absurd. It's so ridiculous, but my parents agreed to it. When I was 10 years old, my father set up a marriage agreement with the Ning family. That iceberg is in my house. My parents treat her like the apple of their eye, but they give me the cold shoulder. I have a home that I can't go back to." After Qi Huangji finished speaking, he poured 3 more cups of wine and drank them all in one gulp. Perhaps he felt that the wine cup was too small to satisfy his craving, so he picked up the wine pot and was about to pour it into his mouth. Ji Tianxing reached out and pressed down on the wine jug. He restrained his smile and asked seriously, "Young Master Qi, getting drunk can solve 1,000 worries, but it can't break your engagement with Miss Ning. Let me ask you, is Ms. Ning's family also in the pet business?" When he asked this question, he thought of the caravan he had encountered when he entered the city gate. That 3-eyed woman in silver armor should be Ning Siyuan. Qi Huangji paused for a moment, then nodded. "Yes, it seems that you haven't been idle for the past 2 days. Have you gone out to gather information?" Ji Tianxing didn't answer. Instead, he asked, "Is Miss Ning's family more powerful than your Qi family?" "Of course." Qi Huangji quickly nodded and explained, "My family is the richest in Green Mountain City, and the Ning family is the richest in Sky Snow City." Qingshan City was a small city in a remote area, while Sky Snow City was a county city, one of the 10 most prosperous main cities of the Blood Flame Divine Country. For example, the Ning family is a resplendent palace, and my family is a shabby, thatched hut. My father can't wait to curry favor with the Ning family. How would he dare to break off the engagement? Besides, Ning Siyuan is as cold as an iceberg. She's beautiful, ruthless, and strong. How would I dare to provoke her? Qi Huangji complained again and again, with a pitiful look. Ji Tianxing continued to ask, "Your father forced you to defeat Yuan Jie because of the Cave of Dark Light, right?" Qi Huangji nodded. "Yes, it's not a secret. You can ask anyone about it. The martial arts competition will be held in 2 days. Not to mention that I can't beat Yuan Jie. The other 4 young masters will also be beaten to a pulp by Yuan Jie. But Yuan Jie is very arrogant. Every time he beats us, he humiliates us and makes a few cold gestures, making the girls in the city scream." Ji Tianxing could tell that Qi Huangji was prejudiced against Yuan Jie. He thought for a moment and asked, "Since Miss Ning is engaged to you, then she's your fiancée. Since she came to Qingshan City, she can represent your Qi family in the martial arts competition. I heard that she's also a half-step divine sovereign. She should be able to match Yuan Jie." Qi Huangji stared straight at Ji Tianxing and smiled bitterly. "Brother, why are you like my father?" Ji Tianxing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Well, what I mean is..." Qi Huangji reacted and quickly corrected himself. "Why do you think the same as my parents?" "Can I?" Ji Tianxing asked. "Of course not." Qi Huangji put down his wine cup and explained, "Although I'm engaged to Ning Siyuan, I'm marrying into her family. I'll be ridiculed by the world. Besides, I don't like her, and she looks down on me. Why would she help me? Besides, the City Lord's mansion and the other aristocratic families know that she's the daughter of the Ning family. She won't marry into my Qi family. Even if she wants to participate, the City Lord's mansion and the aristocratic families won't agree." "I see." Only then did Ji Tianxing understand the situation. He muttered, "I thought she came to Qingshan City at this time to help your Qi clan." Qi Huangji waved his hand. "You're overthinking. Ji Tianxing asked again, "Is the Dark Light Cave really that important?" "Of course." Qi Huangji explained in a firm tone, "Let me put it this way. Our Qi family's pet business can earn us hundreds of millions of divine stones a year. But 1 year of mining in the Dark Light Cave is equivalent to 20 years of business for my family. No wonder the aristocratic families are jealous." Ji Tianxing nodded to show that he understood. Qi Huangji smiled bitterly. "It's useless to be jealous. Yuan Jie is abnormally strong." Ji Tianxing asked again, "Every aristocratic family can send 2 people to participate in the battle. Your Qi family is so rich. Don't you have other experts?" "Don't mention it." Qi Huangji shook his head and said, "My talent is already the highest in the Qi family, but I forced myself to reach the 9th stage." Ji Tianxing frowned and asked in confusion, "Only the family's disciples can participate in the battle. Can't they send their family retainers and masters?" Qi Huangji was stunned for a moment and nodded. "That's possible. However, the participants must meet 2 conditions, under 1,000 years old and under the Divine Lord realm. Those who meet these 2 conditions and can defeat Yuan Jie are definitely geniuses. Why would they come to a small place like Qingshan City?" After a moment of silence, Qi Huangji suddenly thought of something and stared at Ji Tianxing with shining eyes. "Brother Tianxing, you're asking so many questions. Don't tell me. You want to help me solve my problem?" Ji Tianxing thought to himself, "We've talked for so long, and you only reacted now. Isn't your reaction too slow?" He thought so, but he wouldn't say it out loud. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Young Master Qi and I hit it off at first sight, and you've taken good care of me. If I can help you with this, I'll do my best." Qi Huangji's eyes lit up as he asked with anticipation, "Brother Tianxing, Do you meet the conditions to participate in the battle? Of course. Then do you have the confidence to defeat Yuan Jie? Shi Huangji was even more expectant. Ji Tianxing smiled and nodded. Easy as pie. Chapter 2785. Beihai Street, the most prosperous street in the city. The famous Qi Mansion was located at the end of the street. This magnificent mansion occupied an area of nearly 10 miles and could accommodate nearly 10,000 people. Inside the mansion, there was a small lake as bright as a mirror, a lush green hill, and a large garden full of flowers. Even though it was late at night, the Qi Mansion was still brightly lit and filled with people. Just in terms of guards and servants, the Qi family had more than 3,000 people. Only the wealthiest family in Qingshan City, the Qi family, had such wealth. At this moment, in the main hall of the Qi Mansion, Master Qi Tianlong and Mistress Qin Peipei were watching two shadow puppets with a silver-armored woman. The masters who performed the shadow puppets were invited by the Qi family from Tianfeng County at an exorbitant price. In order to please the silver-armored woman, Qi Tianlong and his wife put in a lot of effort. Many elders, deacons, and young disciples of the Qi family were lucky enough to watch the shadow puppets. They were all dazzled and intoxicated. At the head of the table, the burly and dignified Qi Tianlong sat in the main seat. On the surface, he was staring at the shadow puppets in the main hall, but in reality, he was secretly observing the silver-armored woman's reaction. He couldn't help it. The silver-armored woman from the three-eyed godly clan was too honorable. She was Qi Huangji's fiancée, the eldest daughter of the Ning family from Tianxua City, Ning Siyuan. Mistress Qin Peipei was dressed elegantly and gracefully. She personally sat beside Ning Siyuan and chatted with her from time to time. However, Ning Siyuan was not interested in the shadow puppets. Most of the time, she was silent. No one knew what was on her mind. Ever since she came to Qingshan City, she had never left her silver armor. She had a cold attitude that kept people away. Even now, in the main hall of the Qi Mansion, she was still wearing her silver armor and only took off her helmet. She had a fair and delicate face and a pair of deep, icy blue eyes, which added a mysterious and cold temperament to her beautiful face. The young disciples of the Qi family, sitting around the main hall, couldn't help but glance at her. Many people were jealous and secretly sighed. Just how capable was the young master, Qi Huangji, to be able to set up an engagement with such a proud daughter of heaven? What a beautiful and noble woman. Her status was noble, and her talent and strength were superior to those of her generation. She was simply a goddess in the hearts of countless men. Even if he married into the Ning family and became a laughingstock, it was still worth it. Unfortunately, Qi Huangji did not know how to appreciate his good fortune and actually rejected this marriage. He simply did not know what was good for him and was recklessly wasting God's gift. Not long after, the two shadow puppets finished and the masters left the stage. The elders, deacons, and disciples of the Qi family also bowed and left. Only Qi Tianlong, Qin Peipei, and Ning Siyuan were left in the brightly lit hall. Qi Tianlong nodded to Ning Siyuan and asked kindly, "Miss Siyuan, tonight several masters performed God Emperor Evil and Ding 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 the World. When I saw it, my heart was stirred and I felt great respect for it. What do you think?" Ning Siyuan nodded calmly and said, "It's all right." Her voice was clear and melodious, like a silver bell, very pleasant to listen to. Qi Tianlong was startled and a little embarrassed. Obviously, Ning Siyuan was not very interested in this. Qin Peipei hurriedly smoothed things over and said with a smile, "Master, Siyuan is a heroine, a heroine. She usually puts her mind on the family business and cultivation. Why would she care about these small tricks?" She took Ning Siyuan's hand and explained, "Siyuan, we were afraid that you would feel bored and unhappy staying in the Qi family, so we invited the masters to perform for you to relieve your boredom." Ning Siyuan nodded politely and said calmly, "I've troubled Uncle and Auntie." Qi Tianlong quickly waved his hand and said, "Miss Siyuan, you're too polite. Back then, your father and I were friends who went through life and death together. Not only are you the daughter-in-law of the Qi family, but you're also my precious daughter in my heart. Qi Tianlong's words were half true and half false. Ning Siyuan was obviously not good at pleasantries. She just nodded and did not say anything else. Qin Peipei held her hand and said, Siyuan, it's late now. Annie will send you back to rest. Ning Siyuan quickly shook her head. Siyuan is a junior. How could I trouble Annie to send me back? Qin Peipei smiled and quickly ordered the maids to bring Ning Siyuan back to rest. Ning Siyuan walked to the door of the main hall and suddenly stopped. She turned her head and asked, "Oh right, why didn't Huanji show up tonight? I've been in the Qi family for 2 days, and he only greeted me twice. I didn't see him at all. If he doesn't want to see me, I'll leave tomorrow." Before Ning Siyuan could finish, Qi Tianlong quickly interrupted and explained, "Miss Siyuan, you've misunderstood. Huanji misses you day and night and has deep feelings for you. How could he avoid meeting you? He's busy and has no time to leave. You also know that the martial arts competition is the day after tomorrow. He's busy with it." Qin Peipei quickly nodded in agreement to help Qi Huanji. Ning Siyuan would not be fooled. She frowned slightly and said, "Huanji is no match for the young master. No matter how busy he is these days, it's useless. I heard that he has a wide circle of friends and has won over a group of strange people from all over the world. He often takes him a drink and have fun." She was obviously saying that Qi Huanji did not return home in the middle of the night and went out to fool around again. Qi Tianlong and Qin Peipei were both very embarrassed. They were angry and wanted to beat Qi Huanji up right now. But the most important thing now was to clear Qi Huanji's name. How could they let Ning Siyuan misunderstand? Qin Peipei quickly explained, "Siyuan, these are all rumors from the idle people in the city. Don't take them seriously. Huanji is a little slow, playful, and undisciplined, but he's not a bad person. But his character is not bad. He is definitely not a frivolous playboy who indulges in wine and women." "Yes." Ning Siyuan nodded slightly and said indifferently, "It's best that he's not. Otherwise, he'll be criticized when he joins the Ning family." Before she could finish, hurried footsteps suddenly came from outside the hall. "Father, Mother, I have an idea." Qi Huanji's joyful voice could be heard from afar, even when they were still 1,000 feet away. Qi Tianlong, Qin Peipei, Ning Siyuan, and the 2 maids immediately looked up at the entrance of the hall. Under everyone's gaze, Qi Huanji, whose face was flushed and slightly tipsy, walked quickly to the entrance of the hall. Behind him was a burly young man in a white robe from the Divine Clan. Obviously, it was Ji Tianxing. The 2 of them were discussing in the Moonstar Pavilion. Ji Tianxing said that he could defeat Yuan Jia. Qi Huanji could not wait to drag him back to the Qi residence to tell his parents the good news. However, when he stepped into the hall with Ji Tianxing, he found that his parents' expressions were strange. Ning Siyuan's eyes were also a little cold. Chapter 2786. The hall fell into a brief silence. Qi Tianlong was the first to speak, breaking the silence. "Huanji, you were busy until late at night and couldn't accompany Miss Siyuan. Why aren't you apologizing?" Qi Huanji came to his senses and hurriedly bowed to Ning Siyuan. "Miss Siyuan, please forgive me for not being a good host." Ning Siyuan looked at him indifferently and said calmly, "Young Master Qi, you're too polite. I'm glad I didn't interrupt your drinking." Qi Huanji was stunned. Qi Tianlong and Qin Peipei felt even more awkward, but they couldn't explain anything. It seemed that this misunderstanding couldn't be resolved. Ji Tianxing didn't say anything and secretly sized up Ning Siyuan. Just as he guessed, the silver-armored woman he met outside the city gate was Qi Huanji's fiancée. Qi Tianlong glared at Qi Huanji and shouted coldly, "You bastard, instead of coming home late at night, you're drinking yourself into a stupor outside. What are you doing? Go kneel in the ancestral hall now and apologize to Miss Siyuan when you're sober." Qi Tianlong was furious, and his divine lord aura swept toward Qi Huanji. He hated Qi Huanji for not living up to his expectations, but he also did it to appease Ning Siyuan's anger. After all, they were still trying to clear Qi Huanji's name. They didn't expect to be slapped in the face in the blink of an eye. Chi Huangji was stunned. He asked unwillingly, "Father, why are you punishing me again? I didn't do anything wrong. I only came back now because I was busy. Look, this is young Master Tianqing. He's the helper I found." Chi Huangji pointed sideways at Ji Tianqing as he spoke. Qi Tianlong, his wife, and Ning Siyuan immediately looked at Ji Tianqing. "It's him," Ning Siyuan muttered when she saw Ji Tianqing's face and remembered what happened outside the city gate. But she didn't say anything and looked coldly at Ji Tianqing. Qi Tianlong was enraged again and scolded sternly. "You bastard! How many times have I told you? Don't bring those riffraff back home. What kind of people are they? They're just a bunch of swindlers and good-for-nothings." In the past, Qi of the family to the point that he had even built a special courtyard for them. For him. However, most of those strange people were scammers and scoundrels who only knew how to eat and drink. They had caused a lot of trouble for the Qi family. Naturally, Qi Tianlong hated Ji Tianxing. He pointed at him and ordered, "Men, drag this scoundrel out. TSS, TSTS." Qi Huangji quickly spread out his arms and shielded Ji Tianxing behind him. He straightened his neck and said to Qi Tianlong, "Hold on. Father, this young Master Tianheng is different. I swear on my life that he's different from those dudes. He's trustworthy." Qi Tianlong was even more furious when he saw how much Qi Tianlong trusted Ji Tianxing. He scolded, "You bastard! Are you drunk? How could you be fooled by this person? The martial arts competition concerns the fate of the Qi family. What can a swindler like him do? You unfilial son, I'm going to beat you up tonight." Qi Tianlong took out a Zidian whip and was about to teach Qi Tianji a lesson. He was furious and also wanted to save the Qi family's face. He didn't want Ning Siyuan to despise him. After all, the Ning family didn't see how Qi Tianji fooled around in the past. But tonight was different. Ning Siyuan saw it with her own eyes. Who knew what she would think? She would probably treat Qi Tianji as a retard. Slap! Qi Tianlong flicked his purple lightning whip and lashed out at Qi Huangji with a series of purple lightning arcs. Qi Tianji stood still and shouted stubbornly, "Father, I didn't do anything wrong." Qin Pei was anxious. She pulled Qi Tianlong aside and pleaded for her son. "Master, please calm down." However, she was only a level 8 heaven god. How could she stop the furious Qi Tianlong? Ning Siyuan stood at the side and watched everything coldly with an indifferent expression. The purple electric arc was about to hit Qi Tianji. His skin and flesh would be torn apart, and his body would be char-black. At this moment, Ji Tianxing, who had been silent all this time, suddenly stepped forward and stood in front of Qi Tianji. Looking at the incoming purple lightning whip, he calmly stretched out his right hand and opened his 5 fingers to grab it. Bang! There was a muffled sound. The purple electric arc that lit up the hall was instantly extinguished. Ji Tianxing also grabbed Qi Tianlong's Zidian whip. No matter how the whip flickered, he was not affected at all. He held the Zidian whip without moving. The noisy hall suddenly quieted down. Qi Tianlong and Qin Pei widened their eyes and stared at Ji Tianxing in disbelief. Ning Siyuan, who was watching coldly from the sidelines, also raised his eyebrows slightly in surprise. Ji Tianxing looked straight at Qi Tianlong and said calmly, "Patriarch Qi, you're a family. If there's anything, you should sit down and talk. Don't disturb our esteemed guest." Qi Tianlong's anger dissipated, and he immediately calmed down. He glanced at Ning Siyuan and then looked deeply at Ji Tianxing. Only then did he put away the Zidian whip. No matter how angry he was, he knew that Ji Tianxing was right. Even if he killed Qi Tianji, it would not change anything. Instead, it would make Ning Siyuan look down on the Qi family even more. Qi Tianji came to his senses and secretly gave Ji Tianxing a thumbs up. Then he stared at Qi Tianlong and said happily, "Father, do you see it now? Young Master Tianxing can catch your Zidian whip. It shows that he is extraordinary. He can definitely help us." Qi Tianlong sneered disdainfully and did not bother to explain. Ning Siyuan said calmly, "Young Master Qi, you are Uncle Qi's son. How could he really hit you? He only used 20% of his strength." What she meant was that Qi Tianlong was acting and she could see through it. Qi Tianlong was ashamed and angry, but he could not defend himself. Qin Peipei quickly mediated and asked, "Huanji, how can this young master help us?" Qi Huanji smiled confidently and said, "We invite young Master Tianxing to represent the Qi family in the martial arts competition." "Nonsense." Qi Tianlong was furious again and scolded sternly. "He is so young, and he is not even a divine emperor. How can he be our young master? The martial arts competition is of great importance and the lifeline of the Qi family. How can we treat it like a game?" It was true that the governor's mansion and the aristocratic families all wanted to hire a young master. However, only a divine emperor could be a young master to protect the family at critical times. However, a divine emperor was an overlord. How could there be a young master? Even if someone was willing to be a young master, they would have to pay a high price and profit. Therefore, the 5 aristocratic families in the city could not find a suitable young master. Qi Huanji smiled and said, "Father, are you old and confused? If young Master Tianxing is a divine emperor, can he still participate in the martial arts competition? You unfilial son." Qi Tianlong was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He could not help but slap him again. Chapter 2787. Qin Peipei hurriedly patted Qi Tianlong's chest, persuading him to calm down. Ning Xiyuan didn't say a word, secretly releasing her divine sense and secret technique to probe Ji Tianxing's background. However, she couldn't see through Ji Tianxing at all. Everything in front of her was white. Not only could she not see through Ji Tianxing's strength, but she also couldn't see through his true identity. Qi Huanji took the opportunity to persuade Qi Tianlong, "Father, the 5 great families have lost for 60 years anyway, and no one is Yuan Jie's match. If nothing unexpected happens, we will lose again the day after tomorrow. Trust your son this time and give young Master Tianxing a chance. I believe that he can definitely defeat Yuan Jie and help us win the profound light cave." "Oomph." Qi Tianlong coldly snorted and said with a cold face, "You don't have to worry about this matter. I have already contacted Bloodsword Sect's Deacon Yi, and he will help us solve this matter." Calculating the time, Deacon Yi would arrive before noon tomorrow. Give your friend 100,000 divine stones, and let him leave the Qi family. Qi Tianlong waved his hand and ordered him to leave on the spot. Qi Huanji immediately became anxious and hurriedly shouted, "Father, how can you do this? Not only are you humiliating my friend, but you are also humiliating me." Qi Tianlong left with Qin Peipei, and when he passed by him, he sneered, "You good-for-nothing thing, are you worthy of being humiliated by your father?" Qi Huanji's vision darkened, and his heart ached like a knife. After a while, Qi Tianlong and his wife left. Ning Xiyuan took a deep look at Ji Tianxing before leaving with her 2 maids. At the entrance of the hall, only Qi Huanji and Ji Tianxing were left. Ji Tianxing patted him on the shoulder and said, "Let's go back to the Star Moon Pavilion first." "No." Qi Huanji shook his head and said stubbornly, "If I really let you go to the Star Moon Pavilion, wouldn't I be fulfilling my father's wishes? He wants you to leave, so I must make you stay. Let's go to the mystical scholar courtyard." Then, without waiting for Ji Tianxing's agreement, he pulled him and flew to the backyard. The backyard was a garden with a radius of 3,000 feet. There was a small hill, a small lake, and a forest of pine and bamboo. The eccentric scholar's courtyard was at the back of the garden. This was the most remote place in the Qi residence. Normally, the Qi family's disciples and servants would not dare to approach this place. The front courtyard of the Qi mansion was brightly lit, but the mystical courtyard only had a few lonely lamps, making it seem very dark and quiet. This residence was rather large, with a radius of at least 1,000 feet. In the middle was the main hall, and on both sides were more than 30 guest rooms, all of which were equipped with secret rooms. Qi Huanji led Ji Tianxing into the main hall and sat down in the reception hall. The guard at the door hurriedly went to make tea. At this moment, A dark-skinned old man with unkempt hair and greasy clothes rushed into the living room and shouted excitedly, "Young Master Chi, you're finally back. Quick, come with me. I have a new invention." As he spoke, the dark and skinny old man pulled Chi Huangji away. Ji Tianxing took a closer look. This old man looked like a chimpanzee, and his hair was as messy as a chicken's nest. He was wearing a high-quality blue robe woven with gold, but it had not been changed for several years. A thick layer of mud had formed on it. Without a doubt, this was one of the eccentrics that Qi Huangji had recruited. Ji Tianxing suddenly understood why Qi Tianlong was furious and hated eccentrics so much. The old man was in high spirits, but Qi Huangji broke free from his claws and asked with a frown, "Old Black, you've been in seclusion for 2.5 years. What did you come up with this time?" The old man excitedly showed off his achievements and said proudly, "I've improved the design of the previous Heavenly Secret umbrella. Now, not only can it teleport thousands of miles, it can also release 3 types of divine abilities and 9 types of hidden weapons. Its lethality has increased exponentially. The most exciting thing is that I've added a space inside that can store a huge amount of delicacies and divine wine." Qi Huangji was a little surprised. "What's the use of that?" The old man said anxiously. "How was it useless? Think about it. You'll use the Heavenly Secret umbrella to kill your enemies and make them piss their pants, kneel down and beg for mercy. At that time, you'll be able to put out a table full of delicacies and divine wine with just a thought. While eating and drinking, you'll watch your enemies piss their pants. Bah, watch your enemies kneel down and beg for mercy. Think about it, how majestic and ostentatious that scene is. Isn't this very much in line with the style of young Master Qi? Let your glorious image be remembered by your enemies forever." Qi Huangji did not know whether to laugh or cry. He nodded reluctantly and said, "Yes, what you said makes sense. Then what are you waiting for? Come with me to admire it." The old man was encouraged and could not wait to pull him out of the living room. Qi Huangji hurriedly waved his hand and comforted him. "Old Black, I have important things to do. You go and study it first and perfect it." He tried his best to appease the old man. Unexpectedly, as soon as the old black devil left, another strong man with red scales all over his body stepped into the living room with a giant sword. "Young Master Qi, I've been waiting for you for a long time. When you begged me to stay in the Qi family, it was because of the once-in-a-decade martial arts competition. I've been cultivating in seclusion for the past 10 years, and I've finally mastered the Red Wave swordsmanship. Now, please admire my peerless swordsmanship." The strong man was more than 10 feet tall. He had a huge head and a big mouth. His limbs were sharp claws, and he had a big tail behind him. He looked a little like a crocodile, but he was related to the dragon race by blood. This was the warrior of the crocodile dragon race. He was violent and warlike by nature. He was just speaking normally, but his voice was too loud. It was like a bell shaking the living room. "Red Crocodile, you've mastered the swordsmanship?" Qi Huangji stood up in surprise and looked at the red crocodile with shining eyes. However, he soon came to his senses and glanced at Ji Tianxing with a guilty look. It felt like a man meeting his first wife, but there was a mistress by his side. The red crocodile's eyes also fell on Ji Tianxing. He looked at him maliciously and asked, "Young Master Qi, who is this guy? Don't tell me he's a whore you brought back from drinking outside?" Qi Huangji was confused. Ji Tianxing did not want to meddle in other people's business. However, when he heard the words "whore friend," his eyes turned gloomy. "I'm young Master Qi's friend. I'm here to participate in the martial arts competition on behalf of the Qi family," he said in a deep voice. The red crocodile squinted his eyes. His blood-red eyes were burning with a strong desire to fight. "Ah, you pretty boy. How dare you lie to young Master Qi with your drunken look? How did you defeat Yuan Jia? With your face? Or offer your ass to Yuan Jia?" Ji Tianxing smiled and raised his right hand. He said coldly, "With my fist." As soon as he finished speaking, he clenched his right hand into a fist and punched the red crocodile with a golden fist. The red crocodile's expression changed. He instinctively held his giant sword in front of his chest. Bam! A muffled sound was heard. The red crocodile was sent flying. He crashed into a wall and fell into the small lake in the garden, creating a huge splash.